And it becomes green.
Yeah, okay.
And now we're live.
Five minutes? 5 minutes? Well,
Yeah, you
I
have,
have to acknowledge my mayor. There's 3 mayors. here.
yes, I'm going to call you up, so don't worry. Yep. You ready to go?
I am as ready as we will be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. The agenda is going to get started for today. We're going to start with land acknowledgement. I would first like to invite anyone from the Indigenous Advisory Committee or from the Indigenous community to come up and read our land acknowledgement if you so wish. That's okay. I can do it. The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you. So I just wanted to welcome everyone for coming. Many of you drove quite a distance to arrive so early, and I appreciate that, and thank you for your time. My name is Caroline Ragudo, and I'm the Affordable Housing Coordinator at the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville.
I'm Jackie Shoemaker Holmes. I'm the Housing Accelerator Fund Program Manager here at the Municipality of North Grenville. Welcome to the municipality.
So we're your co-hosts for today, but also co-organizers for today's event. So this event was organized in partnership between the Municipality of North Grenville and the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. So today we are very fortunate to have such an amazing lineup of speakers who have come to share their expertise with us. The CMHC Housing Design Catalog is about so much more than the designs. Today, we're going to hear about when used to its fullest capacity, such as when municipal partnerships are formed on the designs, it can increase certainty in approvals and decrease delays, which can result in faster development and lower costs. The catalog can give builders a head start in planning, reducing the time to move from concept to construction. And municipalities will hear about how they can encourage the development of specific unit types through partnerships on the designs. You will also hear from local companies who use modern methods of construction who are ready to build the CMHC designs. It's through working together that we can build homes faster and more affordably. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So I am so thrilled to be collaborating with Caroline. I get to work with her very closely, and we're very fortunate to have a housing portfolio that we get to work on together, and to see everyone here who came out today to look at the important local, regional, provincial, and national ways that we can all work together. And as Carolyn said, in order to explore one way, the housing design catalog, that more housing can be enabled faster across the country and the region. I'm grateful to have spent the last year learning about best practices in housing and piloting and helping manage diverse interventions and incentivizations to ensure that current and future populations in North Grenville and across Leeds and Grenville have a place to call home. CMHC has been particularly important to my role because without it, I wouldn't exist here in the municipality. Well, okay, I would exist, but but not in the role that I have here at the municipality. So I am a creature of the federal government, if you will, because of the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is intended to enable more housing through 7 initiatives across the municipality, one of which you'll hear more about in depth today. I wouldn't be here at the municipality. So we would not have, without the Housing Accelerator Fund, we would not have been able to prioritize zone reforms and major infrastructure projects, development approval software, infrastructure upgrades, or the ARU initiative, which is the one that you'll be hearing about today. So working collaboratively and across government and public sector agencies is what Caroline and I do. And we're so grateful to be able to come together today to share tools and expertise, which is essential to solving any issue as large as the housing crisis. So thank you everyone for coming, to the speakers for sharing their expertise and experience, and to all staff who've worked very hard to make today possible. In terms of housekeeping, I'm sure you already know, but the washrooms are out in the lobby. Across the hall in Suite A, you'll find refreshments, including coffee and water. What else do I want to tell you? If you need to exit quickly, you can exit quickly through the main doors that you came into this morning. And as far as the trailer, the trades trailer that's here from St. Lawrence College, you can see that at the break and after the agenda is over today. And we'll give you more information on that. It will be outside and again across the hall in Suite A. We have a very packed agenda, and so we're going to move really quickly through it. I have a hook. Kai is going to help me with the hook, getting people off and on stage. It's going to be amazing. And you can ask me, Caroline, Kai, or Tammy if you need anything at all today. Okay, so settle in, enjoy the morning. We're so happy to have you here. And may I please welcome our Mayor Nancy Peckford, to greet you as well.
Thank you so much. Obviously, a very exciting day for the municipality and the United Counties that have once again come together to offer, I think, some really valuable information on the housing space, both affordable and otherwise. I just want to recognize I have a number of council colleagues in the room. I have our Deputy Mayor, John Barkley. I have Councillor O'Sullivan. Is there anyone else here? Council? No. Okay, and I'm also thrilled to have three mayors from the United Counties. So we have Mayor Burrow from Elizabethtown, Kitley. We've got Mayor Haley from Front of Young, and we have Mayor Scott from Athens. Our event was competing with another event in Augusta, which is renowned for its hospitality and its riveting content. To see three of my mayor colleagues coming all the way to Kemptville for this event, I think speaks volumes about how much conversations like this matter and forums like this matter. And I know both county staff and our own staff have obviously put a lot of heart and soul into making this event worth your while. As many of you likely know, at both the municipality of North Grenville and subsequently at the United Counties, we convened task forces on affordable housing. And those task forces respectively allowed two different levels of government to really think creatively about how do we do more in this space? How do we leverage incredible opportunities with CMHC, provincial funding bodies as well to create tangible results? Because I think at the end of the day, we all want that tangibility, and we want to be able to say to our residents and work with our development community to bring more housing online that's accessible, that's affordable, that meets a variety of needs. So those two task forces were quite instrumental in paving the way for some of the things Jackie spoke about, a lot of planning updates, certainly here in North Grenville, thanks to the hard work of Director Martin and Mr. Mosher, and subsequently, of course, bringing Jackie on was icing on the cake. And at the county level, we saw a lot of reflection on, could we coordinate the surplusing of land? Could we bring on a permanent housing person at the counties who could be part and parcel of conversations that were happening at a broader level? So I think, my reflection would be is, when you create sustained spaces for important conversations, the elected officials, they want to go above and beyond. I think staff wants to really rally around the momentum that is there, and that enables us, I think, to do things that perhaps even 5-10 years ago, we weren't really thinking were possible. We've seen tremendous movement by the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville in terms of its commitment to building more supportive housing. We have our Heart Hub coming online shortly with thanks to the collaboration of the province, and a number of other housing initiatives such as the Cabins Project that are looking at meeting a variety of needs on that housing acuity scale. And locally here in North Grenville, as I know many of you are aware, we were so fortunate 2.5 years ago, to receive Housing Accelerator funding, one of the only rural municipalities in Eastern Ontario to be successful in that funding. And it really has enabled us, I think, to go beyond what we even anticipated being possible, even after all of the work that had been done through the Mayor's Task Force and through our planning team. And I would be remiss to not also just mention, because it's so fresh, that, through some of that work here in North Grenville, we were able to create a successful submission to CMHC for the repurposing of Bell Hall, which is an old college dormitory that was being underutilized, massively underutilized, at risk of potential demolition. And now we have this fantastic opportunity to repurpose an old college dormitory. CADGO certainly was an instrumental partner in supporting that application. And I think it just goes to show that the ground is really fertile. The energy is there. The momentum is there. I think every level of government wants to step up and do more. And I hope, if nothing else, what you take away from today is some really concrete ideas for how you can take that next step. I can say, as a politician, sometimes you wonder. I have the tremendous support of council colleagues, both at the counties and here in my own municipality. But, sometimes the conversation is, well, do the elected officials really want to be bold? And I think we can all tell you, we want to be bold. We really want to capitalize on the expertise, the insights, the funding opportunities that are now in our midst. And with the benefit of great planning staff and other housing staff, I think the sky really is the limit. So thank you for being here. I hope you get to all enjoy some good coffee that was coming late, but I think it's in the other hall ready for you. So I hope you learn lots. I hope you eat well and make some new connections. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Peckford. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who's Daniel Rubenstein. Hopefully, I meant to ask how to pronounce your name. Rubenstein, thank you. He's the advisor for housing policies and programs from CMHC. As co-lead for the Housing Design Catalog, Daniel works closely with federal, provincial, and territorial and municipal partners to increase the adoption of standard designs and support CMHC's municipal relations team and Housing Accelerator Fund to unlock missing middle housing and gentle density through land use reform and streamlined reviewed approvals. Thank you, Daniel, for coming.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for the invitation. I'm Daniel, advisor at CMHC. A little bit about me, public policy background. I've worked on federal municipal issues for most of my career, worked with our team at CMHC on missing middle housing. Really excited to be here. And on a personal note, bit of a connection to the counties. My father-in-law, Steve Fournier, is a former CAO that I see a few nodding heads. I'm probably the only CMHC employee who knows where Chantry is, because my wife was born there, and I spent a lot of time around Portland and Chantry through the year with my kiddos as well. Really excited to be here. Let me try to thread the needle for you today in terms of what the catalog is and why we're in the market and how we can work together. It sounds like many of you have maybe a little bit further along in this journey than the typical presentation I give. So I'm going to presume you know a little bit and try to give a bit more context about the catalog. Jackie's also going to come up before the end, and we're going to try not to have the doorbell ring, because I think that's the hook, is the doorbell. So what is the catalog? This is a national tool. This is about standardization. Our focus is on low-rise typologies, and really creating space for homeowners, for builders, to developers to get into a higher level of density in our existing neighborhoods. That was our focus when we went out to our RFP. So we use the term gentle density. This is really about giving more options for family-size units in our existing areas where they may not have been available right now, and leveraging our existing infrastructure, amenities, etc. It's for builders, it's for developers, it's for homeowners, and it's for local governments. This is really a tool to be used, and I'm really impressed of how much work and time has already gone into thinking about how to capitalize on this. We've only been on the market with the designs at a technical level since October. So I just want to give flowers to everyone here. This is one of the more impressive examples of seizing this opportunity very, very early. Okay, so in terms of an overview, we have 7 regions. So, I'm talking about 50 designs. Really best to think of this as a series of regional catalogs. We had regional teams, architects, engineers, sub-consultants in each of the 7 regions we identified. We have a couple of bundled regions, but for Ontario, our architect is LGA Architects based in Toronto. They were also our national prime consultant for the project. So we work very closely with them, and they have their own Ontario team that have thought about lot sizing, construction methods, looking at climate and other considerations across the province. So we have an Ontario set of 7 designs that's really tailored for this geography. We also focused on a couple of principles, which I'm going to get into around energy performance and accessibility that really drove our design process. So we held a public consultation that I know some of you in the room contributed to before we went to RFP, and some of the principles that came out of that informed our procurement approach and our design approach. So energy performance, accessibility, family size units where possible, these were ones, and of course repeatability were critical. I'll also mention on financial feasibility as well. This is meant to be a tool that can help with pre-development and also when these designs are repeated for lower cost of construction and for pro forma savings. And I know especially for non-market affordable housing projects, every margin you can grab matters. So this is a tool to be used for that purpose. So a little bit about the evolution of the catalog. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the post-war catalogs. We call the small housing guides that came in various names, but starting post-war in the late 40s through the late 70s, CMHC produced on almost an semi-annual basis a printed catalog of single detached home designs that you could go and get built quite easily. Obviously, our regulatory context has changed a ton. So we now have a much more complicated building code. We have conservation. We have an infill context that we're developing in as opposed to greenfield new neighborhoods in many cases. And I think one of the major changes is we're now focused on multiple typologies, not just the single detached structure. But here's some images on the screen from what you will see when I travel across the country. I'm kind of amazed. You see the Victory home, the 1.5 story. I actually live in one in Ottawa, built in 52, really compact, efficient homes. You'll see them everywhere. So we're obviously at the beginning of a new journey with standardized designs at CMHC. This is the first time we've done this in decades, and our focus is on these typologies here. So accessory dwelling units is the national term we use. I know Ontario, the regulation is ARU. Other parts of the country call these coach houses, laneway suites, garden suites, et cetera, et cetera. These are detached structures on an existing lot. So lots of opportunities with the openness to ARU in Ontario to see these, whether it's from our catalog or the lovely images here from North Grenville, added to existing sites. We have rows and towns. These are a category for repeatability side by side. So depending on the region, the idea is that you'd either have a stacked town with a family size unit above, a 1-bedroom unit below, and these can be repeated in a series. The image on the screen, so the ARU there is from the Quebec chapter, and the row house townhouse option, that's a stacked town from Atlantic. The Ontario stacked town is quite similar, work side by side. Then we have fourplexes, so these are 4 units in a single structure, and we typically in each province see them for a narrow lot and a wider lot context. So, thinking about driving through Kempo coming in today, you could use the narrower fourplex closer to the center of town, and on a wider lot, that's a 3-story design, and a wider lot, we have a 2-story fourplex, and that kind of repeats in each region. And then we also have a 6-plex. This is the Ontario 6-plex you see on the screen. Very similar footprint to fourplex 1, but a different unit mix. So that gives you a sense of the range of designs that we're showing if you haven't had a chance to look. Jackie Art made a very good pitch for why we have the Accelerator Fund at CMHC and why we're excited about it. Really great to hear what the tangible impacts are on the ground. That's awesome. But just to underscore for everyone that the catalog came after HAF launched, really is an extension of HAF, leverages the reforms that we're seeing across the country, particularly in zoning reform that enables gentle density. So we piggyback off that program. Corinne, my colleague I meant to introduce you, if you want to wave, is here with me. Corinne's in Kingston, I'm in Ottawa. We work really closely with folks in Eastern Ontario. If any other municipal staff, elected officials want to talk about being partners with this program, as North Grenville has done, we would love to. Whether or not you're a half recipient or not, this is here as a voluntary tool to be used and leveraged. So we are thrilled to be here for that. Okay, our design principles. Let me just zoom a little bit ahead into regionality. So you see on the screen here, we have images from the north and from our BC catalog, and really underscore, we have a very complex federation with very different regions. In terms of climate zone construction method, well, we have a national building code. This gets adopted differently in every province and territory, which is fun. It means we had to design a process that aligned with that. So we have 7 different teams, 7 different architects. We're all winning bidders in our process. They all work together and shared approaches to challenging remits that we gave them, like how do we incorporate ground floor accessibility, for example? How do we think about energy performance and achieve an energy performance tier that's above code minimum, but not so far above code minimum to affect viability, all these kinds of things. So we adopted a regional approach, and this also was informed by looking at lot analysis in each country. So we hired a firm to do a lot study with available data and give us archetypes, narrow lots, wider lots, depth, and then base our designs on those in each of the 7 regions. From the zoning side, we did our best to generalize common zoning that we felt was enabling of these typologies in each region. So we didn't want to have a situation where we designed a fourplex and then came to the vast majority of municipalities and they said, oh, you know what, your building height is way off. Have we pushed a little bit here or there where we think it's viable for the design? For sure. But we have really tried to capture where the best practice has been moving in each region around zoning. So that's on regionality. I do get asked the question, can a user take a catalog design from British Columbia and use it in Ontario or vice versa? Absolutely. But the bar is going to be higher for you and your qualified professional to modify it for the site. Climate zone considerations are a big one. Structure. Our idea here is to standardize, repeat, make it easy. So that's why we always direct folks to the jurisdiction that you're coming from. But for sure, you can go ahead and do that. So a few images here from the Ontario design. We have our 2 ADUs, a single story and a 2-story with a carport. I quite like the 2-story with the carport. I'm going to say it's, you know, a little boxy, but it does give you the opportunity to have a 3-bed unit with ground floor living space in a context that you don't typically see with ARUs. So I'll just put that out there as a benefit to that design. Our ADU one, more typical of that typology interpretation from our architect, and that single-story ADU does have the ability to be an accessible ready unit, which is good. I'm going to talk about accessibility in a second. We have our 2 stack town options. The major difference for each of the buildings, so you see images here with 3 stack towns together, so those are 6 units. The major difference is just the building width. One's narrower than the other, which means when you repeat, that's going to affect the size of the lot that you need. And the wider building does have ground floor accessible ready units. The narrower one wasn't able to accommodate that. Then we have our 2 fourplexes, which I've already talked about a bit. And we have our 6-plex. So you'll see in all of these, there's a ground floor accessible ready unit as well. So on accessibility, this is one area we spent a lot of time thinking about during our design process. So we went to RFP in summer 2024. Oh my goodness, time is moving fast. We onboarded our architects a few months later, and then we had about 6 months of a design process. And we probably spent a month on this because applying accessibility and an aspiration for adaptability to gentle density buildings on very small lots, when you think about access, trying to avoid ramping, building footprint, trying to maximize a floor plan that's viable, but also stretching the boundary a little bit to accommodate these units is not simple. And we have various considerations in terms of what standards to refer to. So of course you have your provincial barrier-free requirement. We've also thought about CSA B652 as our reference point for accessibility, which may layer in additional best practices on top of barrier-free. And we work very closely with one of our federal counterparts, Accessibility Standards Canada, to think about adaptability. So our basic premise is wherever we're able to provide what we're calling an accessible ready design, is we've thought about the location of structural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So you don't end up having, you know, a load-bearing wall in the middle of a unit that can't be, you know, relocated later. Like that would be cost prohibitive. We've thought about our layouts, where kitchens are, where bathrooms are, where possible, have the door widths stay the same, so that you have two options. You could either know that this unit is accessible ready and down the road convert it to an accessible suite based on user needs aligned with B652. Or you could build that at the get-go. So if we go back a couple of slides to our ADU 1, let's say you're building an ADU for an aging parent or relative who needs an accessible ready suite, you could build that at the get-go, or you could build it using our accessible ready layout, knowing that that conversion cost down the road would be much lower than your typical way that the market operates. It's going to be very prohibitive, right? So that's the philosophy of these two concepts that we've introduced with the designs. And you'll notice that all these designs are at grade units. We don't have basement suites. This is an end user customization that we expect to see in many places, whether that's zoning allows an additional unit or you'd like that additional living space. Basements are expensive. So we're providing slab on grade foundation as our prototypical. One of the benefits of that is it avoids ramping completely. So I think in an affordable housing context, this is one benefit of alignment of these designs. We've done something a little bit different than standard, but it does allow that in the Ontario context, it would be one bedroom accessible units in most of our designs. On energy performance and climate, I mentioned we have targeted above code minimums. So in Ontario, meet and exceed SB 12, but we're talking about MBC 2020 Tier 3. So this is a more efficient than code minimum. We've typically done that through a really good building envelope and use of outboard insulation, et cetera. In the British Columbia region, we target step code 4, which is one tier higher, which is where that market is going, and we provide some guidance material to support users in that pathway. I should say on energy performance, this is a flexible product. So folks can decide to take our designs as they are as a tier 3 design, or they could modify them for code minimum, or they could use them as a launching pad for higher performance. And if you wanted to add solar, roof solar, our Ontario designs all have sloped roofs. You could orient and achieve tier 4, tier 5. So think of it as a flexible product. On financial feasibility, maybe I'll just take a step back here on this one, because I think it's tempting to, I get asked this a lot. How much money will I save by not having to do a custom design from an architecture perspective, right? And so let's say for a given project, design fees are 5%. And we're providing a near permit ready plan. It's not ready for a site. We didn't know where these will be built. That's why we don't call them pre-approved, right? That's your job. That's not our job. But we have taken it as far as we can. So I like to say, if you're not changing the structure, you're not changing the footprint, you're staying within the design, but you're validating it for your site, you can achieve savings. So let's say that design cost drops from 5% to 2% of the project. So that's a little margin. For sure, that's beneficial. But I think the real win is when you get familiar with this product and you repeat it. And so you get economies of scale from that, right? And then we're also talking about having a supportive regulatory environment at the local level where you get predictability and approval. And so that affects all these other parts of your pro forma. So your soft cost, your contingency you have to hold, how much variability, you shouldn't have to have the same amount set aside for unexpected things when you go for inspection, because we've managed the pre-review process with CBOs. And if you have a supply chain that can support this, and there's lots of folks here who are already looking at that, and that's, I think you can achieve some economies of scale over time. So on the screen, I don't know if this comes through, it's a little blurry, but we do provide construction cost estimates for each region. So these are prepared from a quantity surveyor. We have one reference market in each province. and it'll give a high and low range of potential costs. These were done about a year ago, so there could be a little bit of variability. And the low and high is really meant to capture, we don't know the material level that a user of the catalog might choose. We don't know what the local market conditions will be when you go out to bid. And there may be ways to optimize and have efficiency. So I sort of think about the high end as more conservative, the low end as a possible savings. And then if you repeat these designs at scale, personal view, you could probably go lower than the low end, depending on where you are. These are Toronto reference numbers, so we don't have enough granularity at CMHC to say this is the indexation for other parts of the province. We're kind of trusting professionals and those doing financial modeling to make those extrapolations for what you know about your market. Talked about standardization in terms of use of offsite construction. So really exciting. I had a couple of pre-chats with some of the other panelists. So I know there's lots of thinking about how to use modern methods of construction, offsite, volumetric, panelized, prefabricated components, whatever your strategy is to execute these designs. That's great. That's what was our hope as a flexible tool. So these are for traditional stick-built construction. We wanted to have mass applicability. We always hoped that the industry would look for opportunities to leverage that for offsite. So that's what we're hearing, and excited to hear about some of that today. Okay, I'm gonna go fast here about how does this really work in practice. So I mentioned these are prototypical. These aren't pre-approved. They're near permit ready. They have a big giant stamp if you download the packages that says not for permanent construction. But they are 80–90% of the way there. So users need to retain their own qualified professional. In Ontario, that could be an architect, could be a licensed BCIN, could be an engineer, some combination of the above, to adapt a design. So our terms and conditions call that taking a prototypical design to a derived design that you would submit for permit. And I have on the screen some of the things that you would get into with your QP to choose. So, of course, zoning compliance for your site. How are you going to manage parking? Access, it's a big one. Validating your foundation assumption. Do you want to add a basement? Designing that if need be. Building orientation and siting services, of course. And then cladding and materials. So, we have some renders that were provided by architects. People love them or they hate them. I always say, if you don't like the cladding, change the cladding. Like, these are just an illustration. So this is for end users. These designs definitely have a sort of spirit of the architect, but they're intended to be modified by end user. Cladding is one way you can do that. And of course, there's multiple ways to think about materials. It's aesthetic. It's also about energy performance, cost, durability, et cetera. So that's one for end users. And same with the energy performance goals you have. Mechanical systems is another one. We provide in Ontario multiple mechanical options. So typical market gas furnace with an AC, we provide an air source heat pump. We provide a cold climate air source heat pump. So depending on your goals, you have a starting point there for your mechanicals. So what's included in the packages? So if you go on the website, you can look at our renderings, floor plans, etc. If you want to get into the technical details, you accept our terms and conditions, which are really about saying you've downloaded them. It's now on to you to work with the QP, create a permit set, create a derived design, carry that liability through. But we offer all of the engineering and technical drawings, an energy model template for each design based on a reference location. These are in PDF, CAD, and BIM. So folks using digital submission can use the digital file to begin with. I'm going to just give a little preview to something that's not public yet, but I think will be helpful, which is on-site examples. So one of the questions that I get a lot about the catalog, because each design has a site plan page, but it's a site plan page for the purpose of understanding how the architects and engineers thought about limiting distances, spatial separation, all these technical issues. It's not a zoning site plan the way that many of you might. So we're going to be releasing a site design examples resource that will give lot dimensions and parking and access options for each design in each region. And so here's an example from Fourplex 2 in Ontario. Number 1 is our prototypical site plan. No parking on site, most compact layout, could work near transit. Number two, if you have lucky enough to have a laneway, because gentle density and laneways really get along really well, that's really efficient. Can show you how you would manage that at the rear. We're showing this with 2 parking stalls. You could absolutely accommodate 3 or 4 there, and relocate the garbage and bike parking if you're providing that. And then the third example is the most challenging. So if your parking solution is via a driveway, site constraints can be tricky. And so this is assuming a 15-meter lot. We're showing a driveway to the rear of the lot and 3 stalls. You have a wider lot, more flexibility. You could do a 4-stall for sure. So we're going to be providing that. I think it's going to be a great and helpful resource for folks. I'm just going to speak about local partnership, and we're thrilled North Grenville is one of our Ontario partners, recently official, online, which is great. Really, the thrust of our local partnership is about pre-review and helping de-risk using this catalog for users from the regulatory side. So we're de-risking with a free-to-use product that gets rid of a lot of that early work. The municipalities can match that with a pre-review, both from zoning and from code. So I have a lot of chats with planners, and I always encourage them, can you please bring your CBO or someone from your building team with you so we can talk about this together. I don't know, that's maybe a little, not the normal way we always operate, but it's really, really important that these designs are looked at from both avenues. And we've had very, very extensive engagement with CBOs in Ontario on the Ontario set. So I'm quite confident that a CBO looking at them for the first time will find something that they're able to support. If there are little issues that they see, we're available to talk about them for sure. And we'd encourage other municipalities that are here today, want to have this conversation about joining this list. Let's have that chat, either myself or Corinne on the break. Here are our current Ontario list. So you'll start to see our approach is to grab as many municipalities as we can who want to work with us in each functional market in the province. So this is one. We've got anchor communities in the GTA, in Kitchener-Waterloo, lots of interest from other parts of the province. And we're starting to engage home builders associations as well, more on the market side. And the pitch is we're going to keep driving uptake so that if you're a home builder or an affordable housing provider, you have a larger universe of municipalities that are comfortable with these designs in your region. That's our goal. So this is our starting point. Very optimistic. This will continue to grow. I hope this event might help catalyze a few more conversations. A few other communities we have. You can check our website for the list. This is going to keep growing. Okay, let me just sum up before Jackie comes up. Benefits for affordable housing providers. So this is a market product first. We weren't given a remit to prepare designs for affordable housing, but I think the applications are quite strong. And when I've talked to folks, whether it's CHRA or Habitat or the Co-op Federation at a national level, these are sort of the thrusts of the conversation. So pre-development savings for sure in terms of cost, free-to-use plans, predictability in the whole system, especially where you have a supportive community. And if you repeat and scale, that's where the savings come. Energy and accessibility alignment. So I know a lot of affordable housing projects, you're going to want to achieve that tier 3 or higher and provide accessible suites. We have a solution for that. Opportunities for offsite as well. So I'm not going to get into this too much more because I think this is what we're all here to hear from other panelists about. But even though this is a product for market and on market, I think the applications are really strong. Jackie, I think it's your turn. Hang it over here.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I'm really just here to provide sort of a concrete example of being a local partner. And as I said, I'm in a really fortunate position because I'm already working so closely with Corinne in terms of our Housing Accelerator Fund program. And so the way that I think about it specifically is the federal government and the municipal government have been working in sort of this really interesting iterative way, right? So CMHC came out with best practices for housing. Those housing best practices informed the kinds of initiatives that municipalities undertook that were enabled by the province, right? So this is a multi-level sort of governmental, dance that we're all doing together. And so I see the best practices. Those best practices really resulted in us creating the ARU initiative. These designs are the ones that we have specifically for North Grenville. So we were one of those communities that took the best practices of CMHC. He took all my time. Best practices of CMHC, and we created a local reality of this housing design catalog that you now see at a national level. We were, of course, not the only municipality to create these individual designs for our local context. They exist in other parts of the province and country as well. But we're really excited because, something that they encouraged us to do here at the local level, they're now sort of like compiling at a national level, right? So it's this kind of iterative dance that we've been doing that is meant to create more possibilities for housing in this very repeatable, efficient way. So that's really exciting to me. I also want to say that becoming a local partner, I just want to speak to every other municipality in the room, was a very easy process. And I am always available as a housing practitioner in the lower tier space, right? So we're all sort of looked after by the counties, which is wonderful. But I'm always available to come to other, as is Caroline, right? To come to other municipalities and just help in any way that we can with housing. So I just want to offer that as well, because the local partnership has been really wonderful, really supported. And I'm just looking forward to where it's going to take us next, now that we have both these local and national designs to work from. So thank you. Oh, and we're going to keep questions till the end. Yeah. So thank you, Daniel. And we're going to have, if time allows, we're going to have all presenters come up at the end. So please hold your questions until then. So thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. So our next speaker is Adrian Schutt. Am I saying that right? Shoot. I have an SCH name too, so I should know this. I'm sorry. Is a principal at CADCO and the director of real estate development. He is an experienced builder with a background in multi-residential structures and custom homes. As a project lead for the last 10 years, he has successfully completed dozens of units and built a strong network of local tradespeople and suppliers. After operating, Adrian, okay.
I don't want to get that. I don't want to get this little bell thing going at me.
Okay. No, I'm taking his time.
Skedaddle.
Adrian.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to say, being here is nice because I get to speak here sometimes to council, but normally I'm on the other side and they sort of sit around you in this, I'm going to call it fairly imposing manner with council and staff, and you're sitting right in the middle. So this is a much more pleasant way to present in this room. And I'll also say, when it comes to that bell, I actually sent the wrong presentation to this one, which was for a county presentation they did recently up in Renfrew County. And I don't know if there's anybody here from up in Renfrew County, but those of you who've presented there, they put this timer at the back and it counts you down and there's like a buzzer at the end of it. And it is much more intimidating. So it's a very friendly doorbell. So I feel confident that we'll make it through this. So I'm here today from Catco, as mentioned. That's a long introduction, but we're a developer of affordable housing. We'll get into that a little bit. This thing. Oh, it works for them. Look at you go. That's exciting. So Catco is located in Ottawa. We develop properties across the country, but the majority of our projects that we do are on Algonquin-Anishinaabe territory, and we recognize and work with our Indigenous partners to ensure that we are creating housing that's appropriate, but also recognizing that these communities are most impacted. So it's an important consideration with all of the work that we do here today. You do work. So who is Catco? Catco is a nonprofit. We are a real estate developer, and we are a team that does building, construction, design, but primarily development management. So we take projects from concept to completion. We support nonprofits, we support municipalities, and we work with all of the partners, all of the folks likely in this room to create affordable housing solutions in communities across this country. We also provide training. We do a number of things. This is us. Most of us, there are a few more of us actually, but that's the vast majority of us, we'll call it that. And we have a diverse team with a range of different backgrounds. And so we try to bring to this not just the experience in real estate development, but also the constructability lens, the experience in having built different things. We have everything under construction at the moment, up to 4 stories. We have a pipeline of projects which gets us from smaller 10 units up into 250 unit high-rise towers across Ottawa, and then smaller communities across the province as well. So we really try to pull together the experience from many of these different things. And we are here today actually not to talk about just that, but about how we can do this a little bit more replicably with the housing design catalog and how it integrates with affordable housing. Because affordable housing, when we talk about it, we are talking about it from a non-market affordable housing perspective. So if I just say affordable housing, please forgive me and stick the non-market in there, because that is the area that we work with. There is very much room for the market to provide housing that is affordable. And there are some nuances to developing non-market housing, which is where you'll hear me have talk about some of the challenges that we have with integrating things like the housing design catalog, even though we feel there's a lot of value in it. And we'll talk a bit as well about what we are doing that actually we feel like complements this work as well. So we talk about this. This is what we used to do. We are also very much a creature of the National Housing Strategy. We're a little older than you. We actually turned 30 this year. But we used to talk about projects like this. This is what we have. We need land, we need capital, we need capacity, and you can get a project. But things have changed. And so we now are in the era of Build Canada Homes. We're not just with CMHC. And we had to stick something else in there because they're not looking for projects anymore. And then we don't need that to get to where we need to go. We do need development at scale. We need a lot more housing. We don't just need housing that's affordable. And so we stuck a certainty in here. And we left it red. And we didn't put a graphic on it because it's hard to define what certainty looks like because it's actually a little complicated. So we've tried to say some of the things you can do for certainty as it comes to this, as it relates to working with repeatable design, as it relates to getting development certainty. And a big part of this is working on controlling what you can, because you will never get true certainty in development. So when we look at this, we're looking at the 3 components that are there. You're looking at your capital, having consistency in things like the CIPs municipalities have, which can put capital into affordable housing projects, makes an enormous difference. If we know what your pro forma inputs are every time, significantly simpler. When it comes to the land, you saw in Daniel's presentation, it's obviously easier if you can work with properties that are similar. And so those are the decisions that we make when we work with nonprofit partners. How can we align these projects, and what do you walk away from? It's an important part of it. I think we have a role that we call, this is not what we publish, it's not on our website, but our most important role as a development consultant for nonprofits is a dream crusher. We cancel more projects than we proceed with, and that's one of the things that we take some pride in, is making sure that we didn't build bad projects. So we're proud of everyone that we actually do, because they are the ones that made it through that more rigorous scrutiny. A big part of that is that land selection and making sure that they work with these to be maximized as best they should. And then on the capacity side, and I think, again, I can't say enough about what Daniel was saying. It's not about doing these designs once. What makes a difference is doing anything more than once. Those of you here who are greenfield developers, if we have anybody here who builds time and again, that's where you get it. You get this from doing these things multiple times, regardless of manufacturing, regardless of the trades that are doing it. It's about the replicability of the entire system. And so there's some great opportunity there to do more, but also just to get to do it again. And that's where we think there will be the strongest. So So how does that work, and what do municipalities do that makes that happen for affordable housing specifically? Now this one here, we've only got a few of them. When we talk about this, the actual biggest hurdles that we get with small infill developments, which we do quite a few of, is here. This is only 4 of them. We went back and there's actually 9 permits that we pulled on this project when we started looking through this further. I said 6. I wrote down 4 of them that were in my head. We ended up with 9 permits pulled on this project. This was in Ottawa, so hopefully none of you have quite as many rules. We definitely appreciate that. We had 2 private approach permits. We had a road cut. We had a road closure. We had a sidewalk closure. We had a building, a demolition, water card, a number of other permits beyond that as well. And this is because we're trying to work through these non-site plan control projects. We do quite a few of these infill developments for affordable housing. They tend to be a little bit larger, but they are under the 10 or now the 12 unit for not triggering site plan control, which is enormously helpful. The challenge is sometimes the paperwork actually builds up to a degree that everything we've saved, we've looked at some of them on not doing site plan control, we get to the end and say, geez, I wish we did site plan control. That would have been easier. We know what we're dealing with and everybody understands the process. So I think one of the most important parts of this is that if we can get to a pre-approved design with a partner, one of the biggest and most important things that municipalities can do for any housing, not just non-market affordable housing, is bundle more of those applications together because we know we're going to need these all. And the thing is, if we'd gone in with 9 pieces of paper on day 1 and said, hey, here's our 9 applications, we would have been a bit frustrated instead of doing a site plan application. But that's not actually how it goes, right? You end up doing those over the course of a couple of months and maybe 6 months on a project with these 10 units that this came from. So it's pretty important to see what we can do to pull more of those together. So in looking at this beyond that, department coordination further is an area that we see a lot of opportunity for municipalities. And we actually get, I will say as a non-market developer, we do get the red carpet rolled out for us. But we find a lot of the time that, building code services and planning are, I won't say at odds, but have competing priorities, have different things that they are trying to achieve and different targets often. So we do have the delegation of authority to staff for some of these in smaller municipalities. It makes an enormous impact on how quickly we see things going. And then looking at the regional collaboration, because often, as most of you know, in smaller communities that you're likely representing, that you live in, that I'm from Mississippi Mills, not a huge community. There's a good chance that folks that are working there, that are developing there, or even the nonprofits that are operating, are actually working in multiple municipalities. So it isn't that helpful. I won't say I don't want to come down. It's not that helpful that North Granville has joined if nobody else does, right? If no one else supports it, it really does take that regional collaboration to actually make a difference in our smaller communities. It's one thing in the city of Toronto, if you have a couple there, you might have, thousands and thousands of lots that you can develop these on. If we only do it in one here, one there, we really don't get that larger benefit that we need for these. So when we look at what it really takes to do this, when we're looking at the non-market housing, we were thrilled to see CAD files come through. Originally, when these things came out, we had PDFs and we were a little bit bummed, not gonna lie. It's nice to see more of these with the elevations, the fully blown up drawings that we have now. It makes it significantly easier. So that's something we're really excited about. The pre-approvals for municipalities, again, anything that we can do to simplify that process, to bundle those applications is important. But one of the things that we actually did in our team as soon as these came out is in our massing, we do our massings in-house. And so we plunked in, this actually isn't one of them, this one didn't quite fit, but this is, we actually created in our massing softwares, which are tied to the GIS systems of municipalities, all of the designs so that we could move them around and do our site analysis much more quickly. And so that's a really important thing. So looking at your GIS system as a municipality, can you actually integrate these into in the blocks that they are in? Because it makes it that much quicker and easier to identify sites that are actually applicable for housing. And frankly, a pretty picture makes a big difference when you're trying to get people to buy into what you're going to do. That's the actual reason we do them. We pay our architects for massings, but we do them ourselves because we get to bring a picture to an early consultation, and it makes the biggest difference of all. So the last thing I want to say on this, that the reason that we haven't seen a lot of uptake, frankly, from non-market affordable housing is the size of these buildings, the number of units in them. And that's not, I would say, to say this is an incredibly important product in the communities that we have. But for the vast majority of operators of non-market housing, these are not an efficient size to operate for rental housing. There's a good application for the habitats, for the home ownership, and for some of the providers that help folks of less acuity. But if you're providing any form of supports, or if you're providing just lower cost rental housing, generally for non-market providers, there's not adequate margin to operate a really small building like this. You tend to need a little bit more scale to be able to actually make it efficient. And so one of the things that we've taken with this, after conversations actually with some of your colleagues at the beginning of the preliminary consultation, is Catco started our own journey in this space. And we've been working on creating a pipeline of projects across Eastern Ontario, which includes standardized designs, which are larger, that are for non-market affordable housing. And so this actually starts a little bit larger. We're looking more at 12-unit walk-ups and at 30 to 40-unit low-rise apartment buildings, which are some of the most in demand for non-market providers. They're a different segment, and we see it as very complementary to the work that's being done by CMHC. And so what we've done is pulled together a number of municipalities and started to look at the surplus lands that they have, which tend to not be the ones that these are suited for, right? These tend to be suited for the 15-meter, the 20-meter, the smaller regular lots. The municipal land that we have in, I would say, most municipalities is not one empty lot from a single family home on a street. It tends to be bigger parcels. So trying to align municipal land surplus with that. And so we are working, actually, I was in the office with Build Canada Homes yesterday talking about this approach and how we might deliver housing at a much bigger scale across Eastern Ontario. So hopefully more to come in the near future on that. But along with this, we actually hope over time that this will work with factory partners. And we will be looking at, you can see a couple of pictures here, less pretty. These are the utilitarian, these are the actual functional massings, but these are for internal use. But you can see sort of the region that we've talked about where we've analyzed lands for municipalities. From there, we actually see an opportunity that if we are able to build this at scale, we'll be working with factory partners, with prefabricated assembly and modular partners. And over time, if the demand is there, we are looking to build a dedicated facility to manufacture the few designs, the 4 to 5 designs that actually we will be putting out exclusively for non-market housing across the region, which is something that we can do to be more in control and have a simpler process. Those of you who are builders but also developers know the more of the things that you do, the less things you have to chase people for, the less people you have to chase to get them on site or to get the money and whatever it is. So as we look at the delivery at scale with Build Canada Homes, we're open to doing that. And again, we see that very much tied to, the success of that is tied to the replicability of design, be it from the CMHC catalog or another catalog, which again have benefits from the same pre-approvals and the same administration at a municipal level of looking at these designs and working together to reuse them. The final part of this project that we're working on to tie it together is some of what we're doing here today, and that's looking at training when it comes for the integration of modern methods of construction, panelized and volumetric, into these repeated designs. Making sure that we have access, our municipal partners have access to come through and see these things being built. And some of the builders, we have some here today, do a phenomenal job about actually bringing in and integrating the building officials, everybody from municipalities, the authorities having jurisdiction into their plants so they can see what's going on, so they can understand the process a little better. And we want to be able to take that a step further and ensure that there is a larger space for folks to come understand these, but that it extends to the fire departments, that it extends to the training institutions, everybody who's impacted by the changes as we go, because Build Canada Homes and the Government of Canada have a vision for how we might change the delivery of housing. And we want to make sure that the communities in Eastern Ontario are ready to handle that. And I think the design catalog is a part of that. And we see it going beyond that into the delivery as well. And so we're looking to work with all of you over the next coming years and months and years as things go along to provide those opportunities so that we can learn together as we go through this. And I think that's it. And I didn't get the buzzer. That's not bad. Ooh, I was close. Thank you all.
Sorry, I'm just getting the presentation. Oh, he's tall. Here we go. Hi, everybody. I would like to take a moment to introduce Jackson Wyatt, who is the CEO and founder of Cabin. a company transforming how sustainable net zero homes are designed, manufactured, and assembled. Under his leadership, Cabin is pioneering advanced prefabricated housing solutions that are energy efficient, rapidly deployable, and designed to meet today's environmental and affordability challenges. He leads the company's strategy and innovation, championing technology-led processes and design systems that make high-performance homes more accessible across North America, with a focus on optimization of local natural resources, including agriculture and forestry. So thank you, Jackson.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the time to talk here. Jackie, Carolyn, Mayor Peckford, everyone kind of inviting us in. I kind of reflecting on some of the previous presentations. There's a kind of an ongoing theme in terms of consistency, replicability from wartime homes from the 50s, to trying to just ultimately reduce costs, but also have a Canadian view of what housing and building is. I think at one point they were trying to put maybe grain silos on the nickel because that was the only form of Canadian architecture that was consistent across the country because we're so big. So the CMHC design catalog, I think, is a really good representation of these different regional aspects. And at Cabin, even 5 years ago when I was starting the company with the goal of a sort of a Canadian energy efficient, resilient building approach, it's kind of the same theme as in terms of the CMHC design catalog, and we're really excited to have it as part of our repertoire as well, as we kind of go into the next years to come. So we're Cabin. This is actually a sort of a pull from one of our developments. It's still in the planning phase. Some wells drilled locally in United Counties. It recently won the award for ethics and values at the World Architecture Forum. So it's a net positive development for mass timber. But I'm here to talk about our approach to more climate resilient housing from a fabrication or manufacturing standpoint. So our whole thing is there's often a Venn diagram of sustainability and affordability that doesn't meet up. It's a difficult thing. So for us, when we look at the climate crisis and the sort of housing crisis, okay, it's so good. It paused out here in front of me, but it's an intersection that we look and we choose to solve with a mass timber approach, a consistent building envelope that's repeatable, and sort of a technology approach through our robotics and automation. So that's how we bring the sustainable climate resilient buildings into an affordable context. We also do it through our partnerships and our collaborations. So at Cabin, the same day I incorporated the for-profit, we incorporated the nonprofit, and the nonprofit sits to share an open source, basically technology front and resource front with affordable housing providers, nonprofits, First Nations groups, municipalities, basically just opening the books to say, how can we do this better? And maybe what you see on our website, which is a very hyper energy efficient building, it may not fit culturally in context to a northern community, or it may not fit climate wise in Manitoba. So let's collaborate, innovate new designs, and then we can focus on getting the cost down on our manufacturing line. Yeah. So the National Housing Challenge really is about kind of collaboration, and at Cabin, we're here to do that as well. A little bit, just to tie in, thank you. Just so I know what I'm talking about. So the CMHC catalog was a great opportunity we found. We have a set amount of designs already in the Cabin wheelhouse, but what not many people know is, like, as we stand right here, we're doing a 25,000 square foot clubhouse in Cape Breton. We got a project gearing up in California, although we don't like to do stuff in the US as much anymore. But we do quite a bit. But when the CMHC design catalog came on, it was we jumped right in October on it to say, how can we use our line and our planned line to reduce the cost and increase the repeatability? Now, what Daniel was talking about is the true like gasoline on the fire of the catalog is when you do multiple units. Well, at our facility, once the automation line's up and running this fall, we can provide that lower cost repeatability on the single projects throughout the counties. So in a collaborative approach, we can, if it's two sixplexes in North Grenville and a ADU in Brockville, or a mix of all of these, we can apply the repeatability and scalability and reduce the costs at our facility in Brockville. I was looking at some of the costing, Daniel, you put up, and we're that low end already. So if you're thinking about in context of pricing and costing to get these things done locally, I'd much prefer to build our panels, ship them down the road 20 minutes away than out to Cape Breton. It's a much different scale. We're able on one shift to do about 500 equivalent CMHC units a year, and that's just one shift. So that's really what we're looking at in our sort of capacity-wise. We can kind of fulfill a lot of the demand, and we are obviously looking local. I'm originally from Brockville. I live in Athens right now, so I'm the last house on the end of a road with no neighbors. But it's a great place to kind of build a business, and it's a great place to kind of look at how we can kind of get affordable housing. Yeah, so our building envelopes also, they go up. Again, we're talking about ADUs to about like a sixplex, but anywhere from 48 hours to 15 days. So again, there's a scheduling thing that comes in terms of cost that's very helpful, especially when you're navigating, and I was actually talking to Al about, well, Al was talking to me about it in Wellings, where you're coming in a tight location, you don't want to disrupt the neighbors, you want to have a fixed cost, you're trying to get the weather windows right, you want to manage that schedule. So by working with a CADCO, by working with CMHC Catalogue, stuff like that, we can actually have a fixed schedule and reduce that risk profile of this site work being done, the disruption on the neighbors, all of those kinds of things. Our buildings also inherently have the capacity with our mass timber approach, a consistent energy efficient envelope that allows them to be like net zero ready, even with the incorporated CMHC models. So it's a lucky coincidence that some of the roof angles are in the right place. And what often is spoken about is these urban contexts, but in a rural context, positioning of the building is the most important thing about energy efficiency, and the ability to be able to arrange on a lot. I can really utilize the CMHC Design Catalog's roof angle to the right way to make sure that the energy and performance is there consistently. And it's all consistently off of our mass timber and build up like our production line. Yeah, so the benefits of mass timber. So what I'm kind of here to talk about and how we approach the catalog. For us, when you look at Canadian sort of designs and what is a Canadian home, kind of drawing back maybe not to the grain elevators and silos, but more about what I think about where I want to live and how I want to live. It's kind of a modern log home. It's engineered, so consistent, like to the micromillimeter cutting. So you have this consistent, basically Lego set that you put up, or IKEA, some people refer to it as that. But the actual structure of it is mass timber. And the benefit of mass timber is it's better in wind, better in high winds, better seismically with the right fastener details, because it's all about ductility and flex. It's better in terms of fire. There's all these added benefits inherently into the mass timber building envelope, and we almost refer to it as a fortress. So drawing back to how we look at that Venn diagram of sustainability and affordability and bringing it together, it's building better homes and then using automation, standardization at our facility to reduce the cost, so better homes are at a lower cost for more people. So there's a natural fire resistance, there's a climate engineered resistance, and when we're dealing with more climate incidents events, and even in United Counties, there's these wind events that happen that seem to come out of nowhere. Having that extra sort of wind, EF4 level wind resistance is pretty wonderful. We also, because it's FSC certified mass timber, the building envelopes are carbon negative. So it's not a requirement for the catalog or as much as it is, but for us as a company, we want to start out on the right foot that you're already carbon negative with your building envelope. As an example, sort of our show home, sort of near Mallorytown, sort of Leeds and Thousand Islands area off the Parkway. It was 17 pieces and it was put together in about 2.5 days. And then it was finished over the course of about 8 weeks, but it was a carbon negative building envelope with a carbon negative entirety of the building, including the solar panels and everything else, because we chose FSC cabinetry and all this wonderful stuff. So you have all these inherent benefits, but it can be applied to any type of design, CMHC, a clubhouse in Cape Breton, whatever. Let's see here. What's that next? Yeah, so it was touched a little bit on the intro, but we actually have quite a bit of like ongoing projects and R&D component of what cabin is. My background was just always looking at how do we build something better at a lower cost through our innovation, technology, and then better using local natural resources. So we really employ sort of a trees to keys, trying to look at where our local resources come from, buying Canadian mass timber, but even to the extent that like a recent project we did last summer was took underutilized species of red pine out of Limerick Forest. We produced mass timber, so cross-laminated timber from it, and then donated the Discovery Center back to Limerick Forest for the kids to use. And that was all done within the United Counties. That's a way for us to look at really building out a local sourced economy. Everything stays within United Counties, and it's to the benefit of everybody, but it's also a system that can be used at scale across the country. So when we work with BCH and talk to them and have all these kind of scalability aspects, one of the things that is the shiny object but doesn't necessarily come across right away is everybody's talking about a 200-unit building that's in, let's say, like Downsview in Toronto. And not to say that's not a wonderful thing for deeply affordable housing, but the time horizon on that is 7 years, if you're lucky, depending on how these things work. I know locally here, with the collaboration, the partnerships, and everything that we can put forth, that we can have many projects and projects to the equivalent of a 200-unit high-rise in Toronto, all done within a matter of years across the entire region, and make more of an impact in United Counties than they're able to do in some of these kind of more urban settings, because we can do it quicker, we can do it as in the gentle density, we can do it strategically, proper site selections like you were talking about, CADCO, making sure we can move quickly, answer the housing challenge, and really do it sustainably as well. So that's our model, is looking at all the way back from the forest systems all the way through to the assembly and then the finishing in a high quality way. And it's doing it cost effectively as well. Yeah, so a little bit further on sort of our details on our energy informed design process. So for us, the original designs that you might see on our website are designed on what I call as sort of it's a triangle. At the top of the triangle is the lowest energy per square foot possible on an annual basis. So that's why you'd see a building that has a specific roof angle, overhangs on a certain way for shading, the envelope performance. The other corner of the triangle is manufacturability and logistics. So it's shipping, it's how do we produce it on the line, how do we fit it down the road, how is it assembled efficiently, and that's a cost factor. The better we can do that, the more cost effective it is. And then the third factor we call biophilia, which is a wonderfully engineered, efficient home would have no windows and doors. So nobody wants to live in something like that. And it's about the, honestly, human health. It's like, how do we bring the outside in? How do we bring the environment in? And I think a lot of these considerations are taken into account in the CMHC design catalog as well. Where they kind of put the challenge out to groups like Cabin is how do we adapt it to the kind of modern methods of construction? So for us, what we've done is we had the off-grid ready approach, which is our kind of more Cabin approach. We can bring the energy infrastructure with us, as well as the waste and water strategies. But in addition to that, we can look at the reduced cost to 17 to 24%, and then the lower operational costs as well. So anyways, it's our kind of taking our sort of off-grid models, bringing them into the CMHC as well, and kind of opening up the books to everybody in United Counties to say, even if it was somebody like a high-rise from CADCO, we can do up to 17 stories as well. So that's a little bit of the flexibility. Another thing I think where we like to focus is, and there's a little bit of a common theme, but we're very proud of the sort of the wraparound supports that we're able to provide. The same day we incorporated the for-profit, we did the nonprofit, and we devote funds into that to collaborate and design. Like we did a Live Work Health Center for First Nations groups up north. That was their need. It doesn't look like a cabin. It looks like what they need. And we really focused on cost effectiveness, assembly, the limitations that they may have in terms of climate, or not limitations, but the differences in climate, and what they use it for. So that a lot of the nonprofit and the foundation goes towards work in that regard. We also run education and training programs. So we have our advanced construction technology training. We recently finished a module where at no cost, we bring in local builders. It could be a plumber, it could be a builder. Like we had Wiltsie's come in with for window installations for Passive House. We run the module, you get a certification, it's supported by the Canadian government or provincial government, and it helps bridge the gap for modern methods of construction and able to have more folks locally put the buildings up quickly and work with us on finishing the buildings. We also run a STEP program, which is taking in youth that want to get into the skilled trades, and they learn everything soup to nuts as much as they can over 6 weeks, building a transitional house, and that's then donated to whoever puts their hand up first, basically. And then for us, our goals are, again, that co-creation model. And fortunately, there's a CMHC catalog, which is the starting point, and it's there, and we can produce every model across the country from our facility in Brockville. Obviously, we focused on Ontario first because that's where I am and it's where we are. But if there was something, as Daniel said, if there was something that caught your eye in terms of what they're doing in Atlantic, Canada, we can produce that in Brockville as well. So our focus is to make it in excess of the sustainability requirements, make it efficient to produce out of the high quality building envelope, and then know that we can hit those cost metrics or below for every project with that consistency and that repeatability. So that's really our key wraparound, and we open up to anybody that wants to kind of talk to us about how we kind of mesh these different programs together. Yeah, we're kind of an open book in that way. Just have 1 minute. So I've talked quite a bit. We do up to 17 stories, but we're obviously focusing a lot on gentle density. I'll maybe go through this. This was actually out in Cape Breton, one of the projects, but yeah, we buy Canadian, we do microgrids, and yeah, we really are answering sort of the national housing call locally here in United Counties. I can't stress enough the excitement, enthusiasm we are receiving in terms of pushing forward the agenda in both modern methods of construction, exceeding all requirements in sustainability, cost, as well as actually looking at getting housing built in the near term, not 5 years down the road. It's about kind of going right now and making that progress. And we have an open basically open call to participate with us in our various applications and programs with Build Canada Homes. We actually had one as of 3 weeks ago approved a sixplex from the CMHC catalog to go to the next level. So there's this momentum that in every municipality, particularly where I'm from and from United Counties, there's a lot of progress we can make. But anyways, I'll leave it at sort of the very first thing. This was our show home. It was actually funded by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities towards sustainable and affordable housing. They are the ones that gave me the idea about the Venn diagram. They told me 5 years ago, they're like, it doesn't match. Like, how can we support you to make sustainability and affordability intersect? And the result of that question was this net zero, carbon negative first home. So anyways, appreciate everyone's time, and yeah, excited to talk to everyone. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jackson. We have one more speaker before our break, and that is Daniel Liao. I'm massacring everyone's last name today. That's what I'm doing, so thanks. He's an academic leader in the Ontario College System and serves as Dean, Applied Science, Technology and Trades at St. Lawrence College. Daniel's committed to the academic excellence of the 40 programs that he oversees and the learning experience of approximately 2,000 students enrolled in them. And today he's going to talk to us about all of the good things. So, thanks.
Good things. Thank you. Thank you for that intro, Jackie. I'm very happy to be here, and I'd like to actually offer St. Lawrence College's land acknowledgement, and we are situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. May we always be grateful to live and learn on these lands. And I also like to acknowledge that today we're on the unceded territories of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin peoples. And before I move on, I actually wouldn't want this aspect to be overlooked. I did a little bit of reading into CMHC's design catalog, and I actually realized that there was substantial consultation done with the Indigenous communities, including partnering with an Indigenous-led architectural firm on incorporating culturally appropriate designs. So kudos to CMHC, Daniel, in doing that, going to that extent. So here's my presentation overview. I'm gonna try to keep it short because I do want to get everyone out to the snack room to engage with our mobile training lab team. That's the last thing that I'll speak about to put that plug in. An overview of SLC. I want to talk to you about partnering with us to lower your workforce costs when it comes to building, and then share some partnerships success stories. So I was told that everyone's quite familiar with SLC, so I'll just go really quickly through these slides. The marketing and comms team, they do want me to put these slides in, but I will emphasize a few key points. So we got 80% of our graduates actually stay in Eastern Ontario. So we are truly a community college. And what that means for employers, those of you in the room that might be interested in engaging with our students, they will remember you and vice versa, right? So if you have a high profile, if your brand or reputation has a high profile in Eastern Ontario, chances are, that relationship is with our students could be off to a good start. And we also have 2,400 organizations in Canada and around the world that we partner with for student placements, and that includes companies that send their apprentices to us for training, and that's something I will talk about in a little bit. We also offer substantial support, financial support to our students, and thanks for working the slides. Yeah, your name or your company name could be on that. If you're interested in that, let's talk. And that's where our the salesy part of my presentation ends. Whoops, I'm fighting with you now, but sorry. I will try, and we'll see which slide we're on. So, I can't talk enough about the success of our graduates. So we've been so fortunate to have these outstanding graduates win the Premier's Award. The Premier's Award every year is awarded to a graduate of the Ontario College System. And in the apprenticeship and skilled trades category, we have actually had 3 graduates in the last 5-year win. So starting with Melissa Phelan in 2021, Safula Sine in 2023, and then just recently, Patrick Moore, a carpenter, won last year. Which is a segue to the next slide, and that is our reputation and even our rankings. So Course Compare has ranked us in the top 20 trade schools in Canada, and we're actually ranked number 11. So that makes me incredibly proud that you know, a small, medium-sized college in Eastern Ontario, a trades-focused college, is able to punch above its weight and you know, and be in good company with our rankings. So you know, where do we operate? So we're really committed to our community and region that is Southeastern Ontario. We have 3 campuses: Kingston, Brockville, and Cornwall. And we also have an Indigenous training partner. So Iohahio in the Akwesasne community, very close to Cornwall. We partner very close with them. We're very fortunate to have our relationships with the Indigenous community, and we offer programs there. So our curriculum gets delivered there, and we also have exchanges where, so for example, last year we had 2 instances where their students, welding students, came to our Cornwall campus to do their Canadian Welding Bureau tickets. And, you know, we are really working with the communities to tackle some of the most pressing challenges in Southeastern Ontario. And these are challenges as well as opportunities. So I consider Southeastern Ontario a logistics paradise. Why? Because there's 3 border crossings into the US. That's like a third of all the border crossings in Ontario that allow truck traffic. We're on the Highway 401, one of the busiest highways in North America. We're on the St. Lawrence Seaway, which with climate change, you'll be able to operate that seaway for longer every year. And there's a substantial population. So outside of Ottawa, there's about 500,000 along the stretch. But there are issues, and that's why we're here. It's the housing issue, and this is something that will prevent the growth of this population and the growth of the workforce, and will prevent economic development. So you have all these manufacturers along this corridor that's taking advantage of this logistics paradise that will really be hamstrung if we don't do something about housing. So now, well, so like everybody here is very familiar with the housing crisis. So I'll just like, yeah, I won't lecture you on this, but you know, these are snippets from Better Dwelling, just from the articles. But really, you know, here's just quite the paradox. You know, housing is too cheap to build. It's too expensive to buy. So since the housing correction that started in 2022, you know, the prices, you know, as you've seen from Daniel's presentation there, you know, the cost for building has gone up, but then the market now has corrected. So, you know, we're really in this, in kind of limbo in many ways. So what can we do about that? Well, one aspect is, well, you got to lower your workforce costs, and workforce isn't just 10 minutes already, 2 minutes. Okay, that's the first doorbell. All right. So how do we lower workforce costs? Well, there's a 4-way partnership, and that's called apprenticeship. And I'll go through this really quickly. Hope you got photographic memory. So employers, you provide 90% of the on-the-job hours. We provide 10% of the 10% of the hours of an apprenticeship. Typically, that's 8,000 to 9,000 hours. And that's where we kind of lend the structure to the training. That's where, you know, we've had lectures, assessments, theory, and pedagogy. And this is something that, you know, people don't really know about too much, right? That the government actually pays 85% of the in-class training costs or the trade school costs. And the apprentice themselves they only bear 15% of the costs. So, you know, truly it's a 4-way partnership: the government, apprentice, sponsor, employer, and the training institution. That's us. This is a list of all of our programs and apprenticeship. You know, the red seal at the bottom there, that's what you get when you complete an apprenticeship and you pass your red seal exam. How many here hire apprentices either or trades either directly or indirectly? Yeah, some hands. Okay, so here's a quick rundown on the pathway. So you hire an apprentice and you sign a registered training agreement with them as a sponsor, and then you start with on the job typically, right? On the job training, and then you send them to us for trade school. And typically in the construction sector, you release them for 8 to 10 weeks to attend training. And this is something that you could do during the slow times, right? And it could be akin to a layoff, but instead you're sending them to school. And then you repeat for levels 2, 3, or 4, depending on the trade. And then they write the Red Seal exam, and then they get that coveted Red Seal, which is not just their own accomplishment, but it helps your business as well. That's a really eager doorbell. Yeah, I will just put a plug out for my colleagues. So here's all of the companies, wonderful companies that we work with on the apprenticeship side. That's Habitat for Humanity's build. That's something that, just to show you kind of what our students are capable of. And then the mobile training lab. One of the things that Jackson said that really resonated is the workshops that you do with youths. And we do that. We should chat. Here's press coverage of our last road trip with and it was actually in the Upper Canada District School Board area. And here's some students that were engaged in activities with us. We'll be on the road again this spring. The activities are in the snack room, just so that we don't have to drag you outside in the cold. But typically, we're very active in the spring and summer and fall of each year, and it's something that you'll probably see on the road. If you're driving about in Eastern Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And you are now free to snack till 10:20, not a minute later. I'm great. Let's put this here.
So I'll actually just, wait till he gives him a nudge and then so everybody
get
let
some
him know.
from people.
I'm just gonna say we're gonna get started as people trickle in. 'Cause it's just sort of-
Anything that we need to do?
We, one at a time, because they're not all gonna stand up here. They'll just take turns. So, yeah, all right. Yeah. Everyone seems to be piling in. I'll just give it a second just
Yeah.
because it's really busy. Yeah. I think it's going, it's so far.
It's going great.
Yeah. Fingers crossed it keeps on trucking along. Yeah.
On wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jessica threatened to bring her doorbell outside.
Yeah.
That might work.
I literally was like dragging people in. I was like, come on, come.
Hi, everybody. We're just going to welcome you back. We've got a tight schedule for today, so some of you might still be trickling in, but we're going to get started. I'd like to take the opportunity to invite a few of our dignitaries to say a few words. They were at another event this morning, so we were really lucky in that the timing worked out and that they were still able to make both events work. And I'd like to start by inviting Michael Barrett, who's the Member of Parliament for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes, to say a few words. So thank you.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is probably a good time. Everyone's on their second round of coffee after an interesting morning. So I'm happy to have received the invitation and to be able to join you. Some of you were here last evening for the mayor's annual update and for recognizing some great local businesses and organizations. So there's always so much happening in North Grenville. I just want to quickly touch on some of the successes that are the result of hard work and a really focused community here in North Grenville over the last number of years. Council and staff have been very focused on the issue of affordability and availability of housing. There's lots been said and lots will be said about the 60 new units at Bell Hall that are going to be really a game changer and sets this community apart in terms of its vision. And this is the result of a very detailed, well thought out, well planned, and well presented application that saw $24 million in federal funding coming here to our community. I was so pleased to be able to take a very new minister, and Minister Robertson, on his first day in Parliament and explain to him the virtues of this project, how ready it was to go, and why it was so important that they take this opportunity to demonstrate the role that government can play in helping to resolve the issues and the challenges that we have with housing. And so the realization of this project is going to be incredible. Government can continue to play a role over the last few years as solutions and proposals get kicked around. Removing the tax from new homes has been something that's been discussed a lot, and I was so pleased this week to hear the provincial government, the government that our member of provincial parliament, Steve Clark, is a member of, to make their announcement that they're going to offer that relief over the next year to home buyers, getting that HST off, and it's on homes under $1 million, I think, Steve. And so that's great. I think that they're a leader nationally in having taken that on. I don't think that there's any other provinces that have agreed to do that. And so I don't want to scoop Steve's announcement, but I do want to commend him. He didn't ask me to say it. I do want to commend him for his leadership in that, because you're not seeing that in other provinces. And so we've encouraged the federal government to not do it for a year. We said that they need to do it forever. And that's the kind of certainty that we need to find in this space. So it's so encouraging that at the first opportunity that the province of Ontario did take them up on that. And so credit where credit is due. I'm pleased to see that the feds have done it for a year, and we'll see if we can get some more housing starts here in our community. And I want to continue to just thank the municipality for their leadership and their vision, and for all of you for your input to them and how we can keep building North Grenville and keep building Leeds Grenville. Thanks so much, and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you so much. Next, we'd like to invite Steve Clark, MPP, Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rita Lakes to the podium.
Well, thanks, everybody. It's good morning, and glad that we could come together today. As MP Barrett said, we were just at an event in Augusta Township. Some of you might know Bruce Wiley, so they were honoring Bruce Wiley, who's a radio announcer in Brockville, who's celebrating his 55th anniversary on air, and he's just retiring. So it was a great day. Like MP Barrett, I want to commend both the municipality of North Grenville and the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville for co-sponsoring this symposium today. I think it's very appropriate, and it really shows when we've got our member of parliament and our warden, we've got municipal officials. I know the mayor was here earlier. We really need to work together, and I think that's really how we're going to deal with the housing crisis, is that by having much more collaborative work, because everyone knows this. It costs too much, and it takes too long to bring housing forward. It's a barrier to affordable housing. And the only way we're going to be able to deal with it is if we do work together. So MP Barrett, I want to thank you for the commercial for Ontario's budget yesterday. So yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Honorable Peter Bethenfalvey presented our Ontario budget this year. And as MP Barrett said, it had one big measure, and that was rebating the full HST, the full 13% off eligible buyers of new homes up to a value of $1 million. It's a maximum rebate of $130,000. And we're going to extend that maximum rebate as well of $130,000 to new homes up to $1.5 million as well. So the reason is obviously we want to spur on new housing growth in the budget. If for those who would look at it, there was a graph showing some of the housing starts, and we hope that we get back to the housing start numbers of when we had that bald-headed housing minister at Queen's Park. It also builds on the federal and Ontario government's move to rebate HST on first-time home buyers for homes up to a value of $1 million. So just to put it into dollar perspective, it provides nearly $2.2 billion of total tax relief for housing in Ontario. And we think that appreciate your kind words, MP Barrett, that we hope other provinces approach the federal government as our government has to ensure that this initiative moves forward. Locally, we've already heard, even just since 4 o'clock yesterday when the budget was presented, we've already received some really encouraging comments from local builders and excited about what this means for the local building and construction season in the riding. We've also supported a number of very innovative companies that are really on the forefront of manufacturing modular housing. We've had two great new investments that we've put into the riding, one of which was at Cabin in Brockville. I think you met Jackson Wyatt this morning. Also at Arctic Acres in Portland, where I was with CEO Ben Canning, we learned of his plans for a new 30,000 square foot manufacturing facility. So we've got many folks in the riding, and my friend from Wellings is here as well. So we've got a lot of new companies, state of the art, that are working to ensure that we frame the next generation of new housing development. Just in closing, I just think the best way for us to deal with housing is to deal in a collaborative and cooperative way. And I really want to thank all of you for taking time to come. This is a big priority for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rita Lakes. The only way we're going to do it is if you've got 3 levels of government and the private sector and not-for-profits working together to make sure it happens. So have a great day, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much. I'd like to take the opportunity to invite Karina Smith-Gatke. She's the warden for the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, and also the mayor for the Township of Leeds and Thousand Islands. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to take a bit of a different tack this morning, and it's all woven together, so just bear with me. I'd like to thank both the federal government and the provincial government for all the support that they've brought forward over the last few years regards to housing enabling water systems. There's been many announcements in the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, which allows for growth and allows for development, because without that capacity, we can't get more houses online and density built. I'd like to thank the CMHC in regards to the announcement we had here in North Grenville, because those sort of investments mean that the United Counties can help support up to 20 more affordable units here in North Grenville, for example. And that doesn't preclude other investments in other parts of the United Counties. But one of the things that I'd really like to thank MP Barrett for, not to get partisan here, but affordability of life for all the taxpayers here in the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, and all taxpayers across the country right now, is a big deal. So for those of you who don't know, my day job that keeps me in the lifestyle to which I've become accustomed is also a mortgage broker. So when I see these houses and I see the applications coming across my desk for people who want to buy homes, the uncertainty in the markets, which I know our governments here are very committed to trying to help as best we can. However, with the uncertainty south of the border, it makes our markets jittery, and it makes development jittery, because you look at the costs and you look at interest rates. So this is what I do every single day. I'm looking at what it costs for people to actually borrow. So hearing about innovative ways to build and make it affordable as best we can, the announcements from the provincial government yesterday, all of these things in lockstep will hopefully help spur that on. But it isn't without the risk that our developers, our tradespeople take every single day to actually put shovels in the ground, electrical wires through, heating and cooling, all of the different things that have to come together to make a house, a home. So I would just really like to thank everyone who's organized today. It's really important that we get together and talk about the challenges so that we can hear as politicians at every levels of government what we can do to help spur things on. We work hard at the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville to make sure that there is as many available affordable units, the affordable home ownership program, the rent geared to income. We try to maximize those dollars, and without the support of the province, we wouldn't have been able to achieve the goal that we have. We have a lofty goal of 150 affordable units in our 10-year housing plan, and we've achieved 49 out of those 150 in less than a year. So with the support of the province, with the support of the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, we've added those things, and that in itself is a big deal. But it isn't without all the small businesses in the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville who build houses every day. Without you, we wouldn't be able to make the dream of home ownership possible. And I'm just glad that I'm able to be part of it on a number of different points, but hoping to learn something here today and hear from any of you that might have suggestions on how we can help spur more of that development. So thank you for coming today. It is important you're here, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I'd like to take a moment to welcome a speaker you've seen a few times today so far, Jackie Shoemaker-Holmes, who is a trained sociologist, qualitative research specialist, and rural planning and economic development professional. Her work centers on the study and empowerment of individuals and communities in a variety of contexts, including the municipal government level research about the feasibility of creating immigrant entrepreneur attraction strategies for small cities in Canada, as well as leading an innovative methodological approach for groundbreaking community willingness study that assessed the desire of a northern municipality to host deep geological repository of a used nuclear fuel. That's a mouthful. Thank you, Jackie. And I'd like to also introduce Phil Mosher. He's a registered professional planner and has practiced in the municipal field for 14 years. All right, thank you.
You're gonna start?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We wanted to take a little bit of time just to build, I think, on what Warden Smith-Gatke had just said, and so many others have before us this morning. It's really, it takes all of us to be able to do this. We each have a role as municipal staff, as developers, and I know this is not a shock to anybody, but we don't actually build housing as a municipality. We can incent, we can modernize our rules, we can build great stories, we can host these events, but at the end of the day, it's those tradespeople and developers who want to come to our communities. So what we look at is how can we make our community welcoming? How can we make it inviting for people to want to do business here? So this graphic actually pairs really well with Mr. Clark's recent talk about the previous housing minister. So 2020, and these are some new housing starts from North Grenville. So we were sort of trucking along at around an 80 to 180 new home starts from the 2014 to 2018 period. And then around COVID, we got this massive spike where we had a record year for the amount of new home units that we started. And that was over 300. And in 2023, most municipalities did experience this bit of a drop, and as did we. But then I want to talk a little bit about a new story that began to emerge from 2023 to today. So we, again, aren't able to build these units, but what we can do is look at how we do business and are we a place that's welcoming for developers and others to come and want to do business with us. So I guess what we have been doing is behind the scenes, we realize as planners, like planning is long term. It's like, you know, you think of a Star Wars intro, it's a long time ago. It's not in a galaxy far away, it's right here, it's right now. It's for people's lives that matter today. So we realize that there's things we can do, big picture things that we can do. And then this just, like, we can change our rules, we can be welcoming, we can find ways to say yes. That corresponded really well with the announcement from CMHC that they wanted to do the Housing Accelerator Fund. And so we hit the ground running. I think I had taken maybe 3 separate presentations to our council, said like, hey, this is fantastic. We must do this. Let's figure out what the initiatives are that we're going to do that will build lasting change for our municipality. And we had a fantastic council who was incredibly receptive, who saw the vision, caught it, and they said, yeah, we want to do that too. And so with that, we had to have a 7 initiative program, but I just want to speak about 3. So the 3 things that we have done on our part to really help incent these new units: zoning reform. Zoning reform is, we talk about taking us back. We've seen a lot of legislative changes at the province, and that produces a variety of responses for folks. However, it produces a response for us as planning staff. We think that's a challenge. Let's build these 1.5 million new homes. Let's do more. How can we do this? What tools do we have that we can adjust that will help us to do this? And the biggest thing that we have is our zoning tools. So a lot of local municipalities will have outdated or dated zoning standards that are discretizing. They're really like focusing in this box, you're R1 and you can build a home. In this box, you're R2 and oh yeah, you get a semi. Oh, if you're R3, you can go up to a townhouse. And so we looked at that, and with half funds, we said, let's look at the whole thing. How can we kind of abolish that single zone? How can we allow more things? The province also did some heavy lifting by saying, look, you have to have 2 ARUs as of right everywhere, every zone. Municipalities make this happen. So we said, okay, we can do that. So we looked really hardly at our zone standards, not just typology, but like how close can we be to setbacks? What things will allow the biggest envelope to be built on in that space? And we made it happen. And we didn't just make it happen. It's not a one and done. A zoning document's a living, breathing document. So we'd go to our council and we'd say, these are some fantastic changes we can make that's going to help incent more development. And they'd say, great, we want you to do that, staff. And we say, okay, this is a great partnership. And then after a year, we'd say, here's all the ways that this is working well. We think that there's some other tweaks. We think that there's some more things, some more taps that we can open to allow the flow of housing to continue to increase. Great, go do it, staff. So that's been fantastic. The second thing that we did was our ARU program. And Jackie's going to speak more about that, so I won't steal her thunder. And the third thing that we did behind the scenes is our development approval software. So like many municipalities in rural and Eastern Ontario, for a long time we have paper-based systems, which are just not very efficient in the way that we do work today. And so we invested in a development approval software, again with funding from the CMHC through HAF. And this allows people to make applications for zone change, a minor variance, a site plan application through the system if they wish. It allows us to track development applications through a workflow software to hand off work to different colleagues and to track where those developments are instead of having to go and grab a paper system. I know it sounds basic and like very simple, but we did it and we needed to do it, and it's been fantastic for us. This is one of my favorite slides because there's all these negative numbers on there. And like any good planner, I'm going to turn all of these negatives into positives. So what HAF has enabled for us is that the way HAF works is they say, we will give you some money if you make these systemic changes. And once you've made those, you have to report back on what it's doing in your community. So we had a 3-year target of, we have to build 671 new homes, new units, can be apartments, can be singles, can be semis, can be townhouses. We have to do that within 3 years. Well, we have achieved 99% of that within 2 years. And again, that's partly because we have a challenge from the province and they're saying, hey guys, get more homes built faster. And however we feel about that, we're saying what tools can we change? What things can we alter to make that better for folks? So, and with the funds that we received from the feds, again, this partnership piece, we're able to achieve 99%. We're a little low on single detached, but that's not a bad thing. We have quite a large supply of single detached homes within North Grenville. And so the fact that we're a little under that target just means that we're building other types of housing typologies like missing middle, designs that really, from an economy of scale perspective, are more efficient for developers to want to build. The other thing that's really cool is that these numbers don't actually include the recent announcement of Bell Hall. So we look at, we need to have 116 affordable units at our 3-year target, and we had 78 through 2 years. So these are just fantastic numbers. We know that we will really exceed our HAF targets, and we're waiting for more money from the feds. Like, we can't wait. If we can do this in North Grenville, give us some more money. We'll do even more. Thank you. I cede to Jackie.
I want to make up a story about how Phil and I were on a ski trip together, and that's why we're both injured, but it happened separately. So, and we're fine and healing well. So thank you. So I think my job here today is really to sort of, again, speak to what these kinds of partnerships have enabled. I feel really privileged to have come into a housing role in, as I said, a lower tier municipality, in a situation where council and staff already had so much vision, right? Like, they already achieved this $5.2 million of HAF funding that I got to come into and be like, and run with, right? So I have a selfish interest, and that selfish interest is that I want everybody, all of the other lower tiers, to experience this as well, right? Because it's been such a fulfilling process, and Caroline and I need other buds to hang out with. So that would be wonderful. But what I have, because I'm trained as a sociologist, I tend to look at things at sort of like the macro level, right? And so I like to examine everything that's happening all the time and analyze it, because that's just how I'm programmed. And so from my perspective, this role, the Housing Accelerator Fund program manager role, has really enabled me to sort of humanize the planning and development process for home and property owners, right? Like, I see myself as a shepherd, you know, I see myself as a guide. And it fits well with sort of who I am as a person, but I want to bring people along and say, yeah, like, I'm here to help. If you have an idea and you want to put an ARU on your property, then let's figure out how, you know? And I don't care if you've scribbled something on a napkin, bring it to me. I'll bring it to the planners and we'll figure out how you can make an application for our ARU initiative. So one of these 7 initiatives under half is our ARU initiative. And it's essentially 2 streams. One is a grant for eligible home and property owners. That started out as $10,000 and council very graciously increased that amount to $25,000, which has enabled more interest and more possibility for people. And that's because people are facing barriers, and that's also what my role acknowledges, right? What is your particular barrier? Is it septic? Is it financial? Is it the designs? Because that's the second stream of our program. Just like I mentioned, and just like the housing catalog that we're gathered here today to discuss, part of our ARU initiative was an RFP process to hire an architect to design the three ARUs you see up here. I do want to just skip ahead. Right. So here they are. So I already spoke to, and Daniel already spoke to, historical precedent, right? This is not something entirely new, this idea that we would infill develop in this way, that we would create a kind of gentle densification of existing communities. But then coupling that with the best practices that CMHC has discovered over their time of enabling housing across Canada. And then allowing municipalities like us to create, you know, context-specific opportunities. And that's what we did with Rosalie Dawson Architecture. She created these designs with us so that we could ensure that the local context that Daniel spoke to earlier was taken into consideration. And so this is like the micro piece that I'm talking about now, right? This is like what does North Grenville need? What are all of the little things that we need to consider when we're talking about creating this kind of infill, this kind of possibility for people who want to age in place, for people who want to ensure that their children have a first home to move into, for children with a variety of needs to have their own privacy and separate home within their home, right? This enables so much possibility, and that's why it's so exciting to be part of it. So this is something that half enabled. I want to just show you another version. So recently, Rosalie Dawson, our architect, so the artistic drawings were actually done by her father, who's an artist. And these are the ones that you see here. But she's been able to do some digital renderings recently. And so this gives you, again, another idea of what it could look like. And it's also why I want like at least 10 on my property. Just like, you know, for all the little things I need to do. So I just want to take you through this because they're so beautiful. And I just want you to ooh and ah with me. Will you? Yeah. Ooh. Ah, yeah, look. They're just gorgeous, right? And this is just one way. And if you see, do you see the artistic renderings on the wall there that she added? Ooh. And look at the reading nook under the stairs. So this is the 2-bedroom. And this is the 2-bedroom here. This is our most popular model. So when people apply for the designs, this is the design that they apply for the most. Okay, what else do I want to talk about? So we have had a lot of interest in the ARU program. That doesn't mean that we've seen a ton of them built yet. This was launched February 2025. We have seen sort of like spikes in interest. I host ongoing open houses to inform the public about it. I hosted pop-ups over the summer to inform about this option, right? And I've learned a lot of things that I would be able to help other municipalities, right, with, because the whole purpose of this is to understand the barriers and to try to knock down those barriers as we move through this process together. And so part of that process has been working really closely with people, but also working really closely with a student team at the University of Toronto School of Cities, because again, I'm a sociologist and because I badgered Phil until he allowed me to do it. I was like, we have to study this. We need to know like what incents people to do this. What is the most incentivizing? What are the biggest barriers? And so we actually, the student team of mine, they created a questionnaire and a survey methodology, which they put out. Maybe some of you actually completed it, and thank you if you did complete it. And I was just in Toronto at their showcase where they were highlighting the data and what we're going to use to continue to create this iterative process. Okay, this iterative process where we keep trying to enable and we keep trying to work together at all levels of government, right, to make this happen, as Phil said. So I think, yeah, this is the research. They sent me home with a poster that I'm going to put up in my office, so I'm pretty excited about that. And that's all for now. Thank you so much. Guess what? It's me again. I'd like to welcome Andrew Melchers to the stage. He's a licensed professional engineer in Ontario and multiple other Canadian provinces and territories. He holds a Master of Engineering from Carleton University with a specialization in fire safety and code compliance. He's the principal engineer and owner of In Engineering and Planning, along with its sister company In Design and Construction. Welcome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming today. So I thought it'd be, a little interesting. Everyone's going to become an engineer for the next 20 minutes, and I'm going to walk you through what developing a property looks like from the perspective of using one of the CMHC buildings. Let's go. So I got to press two buttons here. All right. Yeah. So I am an engineer. I do civil engineering, structural engineering, building design. And I'm also in school right now to become an architect, which might take a few more years. But I'm also, more importantly, joined by a bunch of my team members today. So I'm really happy that they could take the morning off and come join us. So they're in the back row. So make sure you say hi to them before you go. So my shameless plug for what we do. So in engineering and planning, we're a multidisciplinary engineering firm. So we do civil engineering, structural engineering, land use planning, building permits, site plan approval, and we're out of Brockville, so we really focus on kind of the rural areas of Brockville and Eastern Ontario, kind of the underserviced rural community. So we don't really go like downtown Ottawa or downtown Kingston, but everywhere else in between is really where we do really good work. And our approach is, if you have an empty piece of property, we want to help you put something on it. And most recently, recognizing a huge need in Brockville for construction services, we're starting to get into construction management, so offering kind of a design-build approach to these smaller residential projects and ARUs. All right, so interesting enough, so I decided to pick a property. This is right across the road from the driveway when you came in, and when I was driving in today, the property is actually for sale, I noticed. So this is all your pre-feasibility if you're interested in buying that property. So I did pick a random property. I picked it purposely close to this building so you could kind of see what it looks like in real life. And it happened to be a double lot, which is, you're going to see as we develop the project, it was actually very nice that it was a double lot and everything fit. So here's a scenario. You're a small developer and you're developing a property. You want to increase rental supply and you're looking at the CMHC catalog. So you need your building permit right away. All contractors, I'm sure you always need your permit yesterday. And so it's on a corner lot, it's municipal service and it's near the municipal center. So you think it's a great opportunity. I think it actually, now that's for sale, it probably is a really good opportunity. And so so I went into the catalog and I picked this building. It's 3 separate sections and 2 stacked units, so 6 in total. Generally, when you're doing kind of a lot development, like 6 units seems to be the tipping point for feasibility as far as finances go. So that's kind of why I was focusing on the kind of a 6 unit. All right, so using the pre-designed plans. Oh, I'm not. Oh, you're doing it for me. Perfect. Thanks, Kai. I'll put that in the remote. So pre-designed plans. So at the top there, you kind of see the general phases of a construction project, the way I like to approach it anyways. You always want to look at it from a feasibility perspective. Can you afford it? Will it generate enough money? And the general feasibility, and I guess the schedule is also really important. Next, I always take things into the site design phase, where you're looking at more of the land use planning requirements, then building design, then pre-construction, then construction. So I put up some questions that I generally ask at this point of view, at this point of the project, when you're in that feasibility, and especially when using a pre-designed plan, you got to make sure that the plans are designed for your jurisdiction. Do you have the budget and schedule? How many units do I need to make it affordable or make it feasible from my financing perspective? What engineering support will I require? Often underestimated. What approvals are going to be required? And what are the requirements for my project? Like what does it make my project? So if there's special requirements. And in a general sense, if you're looking at any project, about 10% of your budget should be allocated to engineering, and that's full service engineering. So feasibility, doing your site design, building design, pre-construction, and construction stage services. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is the zoning. So I promised Carolyn I wouldn't get into the weeds on this stuff. So here's some zoning stuff that you normally check. You can see it's zoned R1, so it's not zoned for a multi-unit building. So you're going to have to talk to Phil and Kai about getting a zoning bylaw amendment. That's going to kick in a bunch of other studies, so you can see how these things start snowballing. So yes, we picked a property that can fit the building. We picked a pre-designed plan, but there's going to be a process there in order to get the building on that property. Some other stuff you really got to watch for are setbacks and parking requirements. These 2 things often kill a project pretty quickly, but that's maybe we got a minor variance. And also, just a little side note, I put this kind of analysis together really quickly, so if there are like errors, you can tell me later. And so a couple questions yet. So are you allowed multi-unit on that zoning? Is there any intensification within the official plan? And the big one is, do you need site plan approval? So here's a whole bunch of stuff you got to check. So I went through the zoning bylaw, checked a bunch of stuff. You can see there's some really restrictive requirements. One that kills a lot of projects is actually being near the 401 or the 416 or near railway easements. There's big setbacks from those elements. And so luckily we're not near the railway or a provincial highway. But there was one where we do require a 3-meter landscaped area next to the commercial industrial zone. So this property borders, there's a commercial or manufacturing behind it. Bunch of other stuff in here. I'm going to bash on, assuming that site plan control is required. Every municipality is a little bit different from when site plan control is required. So it can be like 6 parking spots or 12. So we're at like 8 or something, I think. So I'm just going to assume that we need site plan control just to kind of show a little bit more of the process. Generally, when you have site plan control, you'll need a topographic and property survey, a site plan, landscape plan, site servicing, grading and drainage plans, probably a stormwater management report, usually some architectural drawings, and other studies. So you can see the CMHC catalog provides one of those many things that you require for site plan approval, and that would be the architectural concept drawings. All right, so in order to get site plan approval, you have to do a whole bunch of studies. There's a big long list. There's a big long list, and these studies are important. So a lot of developers will say, not like doing these, but they're all important because they start gauging the feasibility of the project, and that's why the site plan analysis phase of the project is so important. So now diving into the R1 zoning a little bit. So we're probably going to need a zoning bylaw amendment, maybe a minor variance. So we're going to have to probably switch the property from R1 to R3. We'll have to check lot coverage. Maybe we can get reduced parking requirements and maybe some support on the building height restrictions. The other option is like site-specific zoning. None of those will work. So you can see here, there's a bunch of zoning provisions on your right side there, just showing kind of what a typical zoning bylaw looks like. All right, so it's getting into the spatial analysis now. So I started putting together a plan. The CMHC catalog was really helpful for this because they give you the CAD file. So I took the CAD file, put it into my 3D modeling software, imported the property lines, and I was able to start kind of making sure everything fits. So, and then the nice thing is you can overlay it on satellite imagery as well. So you can see I started doing the site triangle, the setbacks. There's a 3-meter vegetative buffer. I laid out the parking lot and the building fits. So that's great. It was kind of a happy coincidence. I was kind of hoping I'd pick a property that had more restrictions, but this actually seems like a really good property for a 6-unit development. Also, I was able to import the 3D model from the CMHC catalog and just kind of overlay it onto my mapping, which, that took me like a few minutes. So, the 3D models were great. They're in IFC format, compatible with my software, and it didn't take very long to kind of start getting the model in there. And this is the base model they gave us, so I didn't have to make any modifications, which was really good. Site servicing. So site servicing is one of those things that we like to look at very early on in a project. Kind of two approaches to site serving. Site servicing would be rural or urban. Urban meaning like you have municipal services, so well, septic, and storm. Sometimes you have just water. Sometimes you just have septic. So there is varying degrees of feasibility here. So I like to kind of break these up into like your primary servicing, right? So water, sewer, stormwater, erosion control, gas, power, and communications. Communications not as important anymore as everything's kind of going wireless. But then there's also all sorts of other site servicing requirements. So you have garbage disposal when you get into multi-unit buildings. You have snow storage, firefighting capacity, potentially any easements through the property, where the meter is going to go, bicycle parking, and amenity space or a playground. And so looking at all these requirements kind of early on in the project will help you with the feasibility. So, the $400 a square foot, I think CMHC threw up there, that was for the building, but did not include most of the site work. I don't know, does it, Dan? No. So there you go. So the site servicing aspect of the project can add, another $100,000, $200,000 to the project. All right, so now that we've analyzed the site plan requirements and, we got our zoning bylaw amendment, did all those studies, we can start kicking into the building permit phase. So I did quickly look through the plans, and there was a few things missing that, like a lot of people, especially if you're kind of new to development, they assume like, oh, I have this set of plans, I'm gonna put it on the property, I'm good to go. Well, I think everyone today kind of mentioned, like these plans are really good for that pre-feasibility stage of the project, but there is gonna have to be a step in there where the engineer reviews the plans. And then, so while reviewing the plans, I noticed some things that would have to be updated or were missed. And so that would get you your building permit. But a lot of times, especially in the rural world, we think permit drawings are construction drawings. And as an engineer, permit drawings are not construction drawings. There is a step in there that has to be completed before you can actually start building. Generally, we call that the pre-construction services or shop drawing reviews. Your shop drawings would be your truss plans, your joist plans. It could be specific products or materials, so like part of the building envelope, that sort of stuff. Generally, like the permit drawings, they will contain enough information to get you your building permit, but usually don't contain enough information to actually build off of. Where the gap is like a lot of contractors are really good at their work and they don't really need that additional information to start construction. But in the sense of a pre-designed plan, you really got to look at that shop drawing review phase to make sure that everything is compatible with the local conditions. So I did a quick cost estimate. We're looking at a $3.5 million project approximately. I'm usually around $400 a square foot when I do these. And you can see I have an allowance in there for civil landscaping and your engineering allowance. So on a $3.5 million project, using the CMHC catalog saved you about $12,000. So you can see if you're using these catalogs for cost savings, that's not really what they're good for. They're really good for what Dan was saying is that pro forma information. So if you built one, now you can build the second one a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. You can start finding inefficiencies in the system, material optimizations kind of as you go. But if you're looking for, if you're a new developer and you're trying to do a $3.5 million project and you're trying to cut corners and save as much money as possible, this generally isn't the the approach. You know, the approach would be try to do more of the same building. You know, I'm an engineer, so I presented a lot of problems and challenges with using the CMHC catalog, but I always like to present a solution when I present problems. And one thing I always think is interesting, right on the slide here, is what I kind of like to call a micro development. So you can put 3 units on any property without site plan approval. And you can see like site plan approval is a big chunk in doing these bigger projects. And so maybe the solution for this property across the road is we're going to buy the property, we're going to renovate the main floor, add a secondary suite somewhere, and then a ARU at the back. So that gets you 3 units on the property with very limited input and requirements as far as like site plan approval and engineering studies. You could probably do the whole project with a BCIN designer and you know, reduce your costs that way. Yeah, that's my whole presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for that, and also for being right on schedule. We didn't even have to use the doorbell or anything. So I'd like to introduce our last speaker of today, Al Armstrong, who is the Business Development and Logistics Manager at Wellings Modular. Wellings Modular, which is located in Brockville, uses modern methods of construction to build homes ranging from single level to apartment buildings. Al was also a long-term council member for our neighboring township at North Dundas, where he served for 18 years as a member of council and then deputy mayor and warden of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, which has provided him with a unique perspective as a business person dedicated to building more housing. So thank you, Al.
Well, thank you very much. Before I get into my presentation, as is my want, and anyone that's ever had to listen to me in a council chamber, I do tend to preamble and meander around, and all of the things that I've heard, I just want to make some comments on. First, I would like to thank Jackie and Caroline for putting together this opportunity to speak today. I'd like to thank the Mayor, Nancy Peckford, for allowing people to come to North Grenville. And on the side note, as a new member of the North Grenville residents, it's interesting for me to only have to drive 5 minutes to make a presentation, as opposed to usually on the road by 5 o'clock in the morning and to get to somewhere out of my township. I would also like to thank MPP Steve Clark and MP Mr. Barrett for being here and showing the leadership that they have. Unlike Corinne, I will be somewhat partisan because I've been a lifelong card-carrying member of the PC party and will always continue to be, but that's, you know, you can either love me or hate me for that, but that will stay static. I have a couple things that I wanted to say that we're very helpful, very hopeful and happy about from the Wellings Group. We are the construction arm of Nautical Lands Group, which has been around for 30 plus years. We identified what we felt to be a niche in the market, which is 55 active. So we don't build end-of-life warehouses for people to go into and you know, stay there until all is over. We target people that are 55 plus that can live in self-contained units that are still active but want to get out of their larger homes and pass. Generally, from where we were coming from was a agriculture centric area, and people giving up the family farms to their family members and moving within their same community. And we do target smaller communities. You know, we're Brockville. We don't do much work in Ottawa or in Toronto. We do a little bit of outside work there, but we're more we built in Winchester. We have built in Brockville. We build in smaller areas like that. So we feel that we're twofold. We build new places for the people to live, but we also open up the bungalows and these smaller homes that people need that are not being built in these communities. So you know, we don't create new housing as far as single family homes all the time, but we do open them up so we feel like we are adding to the density that is around. I would say as well, listening to Wyatt again, sorry, Jackson, I always do that too. We started about the same time. And if you have an opportunity to go to Mallory Town, or if you can talk with Jackson, those homes are phenomenal. Not to give him a commercial, but we're not in competition, so it's easy for me to do it. But I was lucky enough to be invited by Jackson to go down and see it when they were building it, and then when it was finished, and it's really worth a drive. It's a beautiful area, but it's also, they're incredible homes, and I think I would encourage you to go ahead and look at them. What we do at Wellings is we build on slab on grade. Generally, our forte is single-family dwellings that are in the township, clusters of township and townhouses sort of ideas. We have 4, 5, and 6 clusters. So we generally have 2 single bedrooms, 2 double bedrooms, and a bachelor. And the 6 just adds another bachelor. They range between 5,000 to 7,000 square feet in the total circumference. And part of the thing that we've learned and done over our 4 years is we've realized where the efficiencies are. So when we first started building a 5-unit townhome, it would take us about 2.5 weeks to build them. We are now building and putting them out of our production plant in 4 days. And it's 3.5 days to build, and on the afternoon of the 4th day, we are delivering that to site. So it's exponentially incredible to us how quickly we've maximized our ability to put these things out. So we're very happy to see the CMHC and seeing that the member partners with the townships and the provincial government, the federal government, because we've been sort of silently screaming, we have all of this capacity. We're functioning with we build our own communities, which we don't sell, we only rent. So we have been a little bit different than, say, the cabins or other companies like that, because we're not trying to build a catalog where we can sell it to you. But now our capacity has gone to where we're operating at about 27 to 28% of our capacity, but that's all it takes to do our projects. We've extended ourselves into 4 level mid-rises. Now we've gone to 6 level mid-rises, but we still can pump them out way faster than we can ever actually stitch them together. So now we are actively trying to find partners that would like us to build single-family homes, multi-res areas, all those sort of things. We want to delve into the market, but we're not in the great thing that we find is we're not in competition with the cabins of the world. Like Jackson and I have been talking about working together, and we can perhaps provide floor cartridges for them and things that he won't need to put his capital into to build, because we're not taking away from his market space, but we can enhance the market space. So we don't have the typical North American sort of attitude where we do the same thing, but I want all the customers. If he finds the customers, we can provide for, a nominal charge what he's needing or someone else, and they can do the same thing for us as well. So it's a very symbiotic sort of marketplace that we're sitting in, and we really want to exploit that now. We are unabashedly pro-Canadian. We only use Canadian lumber. We use Canadian nails. We use Canadian nailers. We use every single thing. We use Canadian cladding. We do everything we can possibly get from Canada is what we put into it. We partner with home hardwares everywhere that we go. We build in Brooks, Alberta, Red Deer, Alberta. We are all throughout Ontario. We have a large project going on in Cheticamp, Nova Scotia, and it's all coming through home hardwares. So, we're very proud of that, and we scream that from the mountaintops whenever we can. We are going to spend every single dollar that we can in Canada. One of the more challenging things of my particular job right now, it used to be the business development, but now it's turning into the logistics, because without, again, getting too political, but with the orange-headed Muppet to the south, every time we go for a drive, it seems to cost us hundreds more dollars, because whatever, he, ate a bad McDonald's and felt like he would invade someone. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I don't know how much training you'd have to get to be able to anticipate that sort of thing, but it's not in any business class that we've ever taken. So, we're sort of running into that, but that's my little preamble. And I think if you would mind running my slides, I will try to get back on track for you. So that is a typical look. That is, we own our own trucking company. We have our own trailers. We have large trailers like that. That's a 48-foot flatbed. We have 2 smaller trailers as well because we tend to be, as I said, in small communities. We don't want to be jumping over curbs. We're building our own areas. So we try to be, you know, very cognizant and very respectful of the land and the topography that we're in. So we have the right cross section to be able to deliver into your community, not disrupt things, not have to block roads off. So we can, if we need to take a smaller trailer, which still has a sizable payload, so it's still economical, so we can go ahead and build in your community. We tend to, as well, because we can control the logistics of it, we don't have a lot of downtime. We're not waiting for a third-party carrier. We do for out west, obviously, because we don't have the logistics to travel and enough drivers. We do use third-party carriers, but they're dedicated to us, so there's no real delay. We don't lose time on any project that someone wants something built because we can't get the applicable equipment to get it to you. So we try to keep that all contained. We have, thank you. We are, one thing that we have learned in the 5 years is we may have made a small error on naming it Dwellings Modular because people tend to think of, say, a Gilchrist home or something that we're going to provide you. You're going to show up, you're going to have 4 units and it's just going to be put together and that's your house. That's not what we do. We're a panelization company. So it's more, as Jackson said, it's more the IKEA type, or it's more of a, because I'm old, a Lincoln log sort of idea that where you're stitching them together. But when you think of it, so if we build a 1,600 square foot townhome, we can stitch those together. All of our walls arrive, they're all staged, they are all sequenced, they are all labeled. It's literally, you're just paint by numbers putting your house together. So we can put those together in about 4 weeks. It's done. You can move in from the time that we get the slab on grade to where we're finished. We have all of our pre-engineering, all of our work is, all of our services are done before we get there. So when you see our houses, they're put together such that, you know, there's markings on the walls where this is where your wiring is going to go. All the backing is there if you're going to put the kitchens in. All the backing's there for any other spot for closets, anything. It's completely ready, and it just needs the trades to come in. Where we also provide a positive impact to the community is when you build a house, you may want to have 3, 4 master carpenters. We just need 1 master carpenter, and the rest can be people that are working their way through the trades or just laborers, because it's simply A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D. So you're putting it together. You don't have to have years and years of experience. You just have to have the understanding that the pink dots go to the pink dots, stitch them on, and off you go. We're looking at expanding now into doing floor cartridges because it's not something that we do. And we're sort of contemplating whether or not we're going to start to do our own roof trusses. Right now, we go ahead and contract them out, but it still works for us very well as far as the economics of it. So this is the program that we use. It's not that common, but it works for us. We have 2 in-house programmers. We use SEMA, which SEMA is the language that talks to our machines. Our machines are Home Ag and Weinmann, made out of Germany. They're very, very specialized pieces of equipment. And once we put your program into SEMA, we can give you a 3D rendering. You can see all of the places that you might want to change and see we can tweak those things. But also for our builders, we can see where there might be any sort of problems, and we can work. When we have done, we've actually built some of these things in our parking lot and then had contractors come in and say they let us know where they think things could be easier done or that we could replace them or they don't like the look of something. So we've got our product down pretty much to a science. I mean, we don't have any real issues with them anymore. They're as streamlined as possible. Where we run into problems with people now, because we're just stepping out into the communities to see if we could do single family homes, is people come into us, they're expecting us, as I said, to provide them with a home that's already prepared to be just stitched together. And then our first response is, as soon as you get us some plans, we can go ahead and make the program for you, and you can see how it will work. And there's no charge for any of that, and we will let you know what the cost will be afterwards. Once you decide to go ahead with us. people tend to just sort of go, oh, and they see that as a roadblock, which is something where Daniel and the CMHC should be commended, because what it's provided for people like us is now we have a small, but still very stylized and very, very economical program that we can have, because we've now entered into our programming all of your units right from Alberta to the Atlantic. So we have a little catalog that we didn't have to go ahead and decide what do we think people want to buy, because you guys have already done that work and you guys have already put in the effort to get the understanding. So we thank you for that, because now we have things that we can offer to people. And it's a big difference, because a lot of home buying is the fear of the unknown. I mean, you don't know what, like, if I say to you, what do you want to build as a house? Well, you might have a very, very broad idea in your head, but you don't really know how it is that you want your house to look, and that could take forever. Now we can show them a catalog, and we're going to expand on the catalog because we've taken some of the impetus that you guys brought through and thought, okay, well, we can build on something like that. And when we have enough customers come in and they say, well, when we identify things that we don't have from the CMHC catalog, we can incorporate those. So it's helping companies like us as well, right? So this is no small thing, especially having spent so much time in municipal politics. It tended to be, although it's, you know, certainly the generation before, it tended to be people coming in and then we would just judge you if that's what we wanted in our area. But now you've already said, these are things that we want to see. These are things that we want to do. So it seems like a more, and you know, people like the North Grenville Council have already made it sort of welcoming. So you know that you feel a little more comfortable when you come into these places now, right? So instead of being a first-time home builder and you come in and you have to meet a planner who seems to be very friendly, but they tend to be looking like they're judging everything that you've done and made sure that you've done all your math right. It's a little bit intimidating, right? But so now you're coming in feeling like you're part of the process and they want you here, which is a big change, right? So that is the stacked townhouse example. That's the 3D sort of rendering that you can get, which shows you sort of how these things can be placed together. It's a very simple sort of a throwaway slide, but it gives you the idea as opposed to what our previous slide was, where you see all the ins and outs as opposed to this. So the material list is the bundles of material that we have, which is also part of what we've done for all of the CMHC units. They are all in there. So when you come in and you say you want the single ARU, we can tell you exactly how much material you're going to need. We can tell you that day's pricing, that sort of thing, which is a big deal, because that used to take us about 2-3 days to do, when we'd have to go through and someone has to count every single piece that goes in there. Now we've got it all set. So for us, for the optimization of our equipment, it's one of the best things that we've seen. The one other thing I want to say from that slide is the other thing, besides utilizing the lack of skilled labor, so that we could just have to have, again, a one master carpenter and maybe 4 or 5 laborers. The generally accepted right now wastage on stick framing is about 17%, give or take. We are hovering around 2 to 3%. The last one that we did for our 4-story building that we built in Port Hope right now, we were at 1.5% waste. That is phenomenal. I mean, that is something that we wear as a source of pride. And what it stops is, you know, if you just imagine yourself, if you're on the job site and I say to you, I need a 2-foot piece of 2x4. You may walk all the way to where the lumber is piled, or you may walk right by that 6-foot piece and you'll just cut 2 feet off of it. Our machine, our cutting machine, if it calls for a 2-foot piece of material, there is only an allowance of 8 to 12 inches. If you put a 4-foot piece in there, it'll just spit it back out. It won't cut it. So it's not even that we're so diligent and so wonderful and all of our workers go, oh no, I can't go that, I got to measure it. They put it in, the machine says, no, you have to do exactly what we do. And they'll go all day, they'll push it back in, it'll spit it back out. So we see these sort of results. So we don't have to buy a lot of wasted material. You're not paying for wasted material, because let's face it, you're paying for that wasted material. We're not. So that is a wonderful thing about our machines. So as you can see, that's a couple of our workers, which, by the way, these are all of our people, our work staff are great workers. but none of these people are carpenters. Most of these people didn't have any background in construction, really. They understand manufacturing. They're hard workers. They're what you're going to find throughout Leeds, Grenville, and Thousand Islands, generally. But they're not here. They're not master. They're not Red Seal carpenters. They're not anything like that. And they work perfectly fine for us, and they enjoy it. And it's a new vista for them. You know, it's excuse me. It's a wonderful thing to see these, and it's also we have a readily available workforce doing it this way. So what they're doing, though, those are Canadian nailers, and then they're pushing the walls to the bridge, which makes them. They're putting in some studs inside there, and it's all done. The machines have already set all those up, and all they have to do is that end piece. Everything else that you see there has been done by machines. That overhead, that Weinman piece, it cuts, routers, and also nails everything, including the sheathing, and it's done in seconds. You can almost not hear yourself think when our machines are running because it's so fast. It sounds like machine guns going back and forth. It's quite a thing to see. So that's our sheathing bridge. So we send out our walls. They have sheathing. They have tie bar on them. They have any backing that's needed, as I said. We don't do insulation. We don't do the cladding right there, but we do it at a later point. Generally, depending for our mid rises, we do them on site. For the other pieces that we do for our townhomes, we do them in the factory. Okay. So again, this is how we send them. This is how they would arrive to you. They are all, I'm not sure, I think you can see at least on the bottom one, the green marking. So that is between that and the chalk marks, that's what indicates to the builders what piece goes with the next piece. There's all, excuse me, there's all, we have all the diagrams and we have all the paperwork for them, but the guys generally get used to seeing what colors go with what other colors, and once you've done one or two of them, you can see which ones are going to fit together. It's very obvious. Like it's hard to put it together wrong. So it just becomes paint by numbers, which is wonderful. Speed is our essence, speed and accuracy. So right now, we used to have our own installers, but now we're working with third-party installers because, you know, we do one thing that we need to do is we need to identify the gaps in our service, and from one project to the next, as every speaker has talked about, there seems to be delays and we tend to lose some of our crews. So we were suffering with that for 4 years, and then we decided we found an excellent company that provides us workers on demand that have not failed us yet. And so we went ahead and we've contracted them to do our work as opposed to, you know, expecting 5 people to show up and 3 people show up and things like that. Or, you know, sometimes we had month-long delays in projects. And I know I've spoken with Mr. Clark about this, and he's heard it from every single person. But, you know, well, we're going to start in February. Well, we didn't get our permits, and our permits didn't come till June. So what do we do with our labor force? We can pay them for a little bit of time, but we can't pay them for 4-month gaps every time we go to do our processes. So we found this to be working for us very well. One thing that we do make sure is that every time we send out a load, whenever they stitch together the walls, we demand that we get feedback from our stitchers to tell us if there's any mistakes, any problems, any quality improvements that they would see, so that we are constantly evolving and making sure that we can improve our product, because our company stands on the pride of it. We are not shy about listening to anyone say that, well, this was less than what we thought. This is, you know, this needs to be improved. And we actively take all of the comments and we try everything we can to make sure that we've got the best possible product. And in the last 4 years, we feel that the product it's hard to pick it apart. It's quite a quality product now. Was that the 2-minute one or the? Okay. This is how we've evolved the business now for us to go with outside homes. As you can see, we make your 3D drawing and we walk you through the process, and then The only thing that we really need now that we're using is the CCA1 contract, which is, you know, a very, very versatile and generally used contract. We take our deposit and then we begin your process and we provide your home. This is the list of just, these are very, very general pricing. But as the theme has been as well, as we start to do, when we repeat and get things scalable, those prices will come down. It's generally not going to be $2 and it's generally not going to be $7 a square foot. You're going to find it somewhere in the middle. And unfortunately, until we become scalable with it, the prices will fluctuate a little bit, but we are doing everything we can to make sure that we keep the prices down. Our margin is not high. We're not trying to hit a home run every single time because our own projects that we build is the basis for our company. So we don't need to build your home and make 500% off of it. We've already got our steady income. We've already got our economics are based on what we do for our own projects. And so now what we're trying to do is just expand and use we want to use what we have capacity, as we've seen. And, you know, we're again, without the big sale thing, I can honestly tell you, we're not looking to take over the market. We just want to be in the market, and we want to help out companies like Cabin, and Cabin will help us out as well. We just want to be part of it because as I've seen, same as economic predictions, you know, if every single modular factory was building at 100% capacity, we would still be decades out of reaching the goal of what we need for homes in Canada to help this crisis. So there's no reason why I have to fight with Jackson, Jackson has to fight with me, because if we were both going 100%, we're still not going to make much of a blip on what we need for it as a nation. So it's sort of the, you know, rah, let's get together, and we have a gap in capacity, you need capacity, just give us a call. We'll be reasonable. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Al, for that. And thank you to all the speakers for today that we've had. It's been very informative, I think, and also on time. So because of that, I'd like to invite up the speakers. We now have time for questions in general. So I'll just have the speakers come to the front, and then we're going to send a microphone over to the side, Jessica. And if you're interested in asking a question to one of the speakers, you could just line up maybe down that side, and we'll pass the microphone to the different speakers. So thank you, everybody. Okay, I just didn't want to freeze it. Yeah. Okay. Sammy's got
Yeah, I can use the mic. Yeah, that's a good question. Phil did bring up that he saved the project about $30,000 by being amicable to the project. But yeah, a lot of what my team would do is that feasibility. So like those numbers are super high level, right? So when we're looking at it at the stage that the CMHC design catalog is at, we don't know if you're doing a gold plated toilet or a standard one, right? Like we don't know if you're doing marble countertops or something else. And so we're just using kind of general costs. So there's always ways to look at cost savings within the materials of the project. That would be the big thing. So if someone came in and it's like, this is the budget per unit, then we might say, well, 8 units is feasible for you or 6 is feasible, but you're doing like kind of IKEA kitchens type stuff. Did anyone else want to comment?
Yes. Again, too, I will say that the 17% mark, like economic forecasting, is just a number that you're going to find on, general websites. But we'd love to take, I mean, we do pay a lot of attention to it, but we'd love to take credit for it, but it's really the machines that just won't allow you to do it, which is great, right? Because when you train new people, you don't fall back and all of a sudden you're back at 10% wastage and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's a phenomenal savings. When you think over the course of building a 6-story building, if you're saving 15% on wastage, let's say, that's an awful lot of lumber and that's a lot of money. So that is plus, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll kind of add to that. Like my whole sort of career, 15 years and all different manufacturing approaches across everything, it all comes down to, well, not all of it, but like a big portion, the majority is, it's like time, material, and labor to do the same result or a better result. And what I was talking about is like, that's a big material cost or wastage cost. There's finding out what the best and highest quality materials to go into that. The time, the schedule of the whole project is a huge factor in financing. Like we have customers that come because of just that piece. They're like, if it's faster, I don't hold that loan for that long. And then the labor component as well is trying to make it as efficient. But yeah.
I'll jump in more. I'm Daniel from CMHC, and thanks for having us. I echo that completely. I think it's an ecosystem of factors that go into a project feasibility, right? So if we just look at construction costs, that's one element. The application on the manufacturing side, the servicing on the site. So one thing we didn't talk about today is electrical connections can be complicated. So I mean, adding a ground-mounted transformer for a multiplex unit can be more complicated than a smaller, and there's evolving best practices around that. If you're 5+ units, you're eligible for MLI Select, Commercial Product CMHC. That's going to improve viability. If you're doing an ARU, using our designs, that aligns with Equal Plus, which is a premium reduction for energy performing or smaller products. So there's alignment opportunities, but I would say also even just a per door calculation sometimes is a bit misleading, because this stacked town example you had is 3 family size units, 3 1-beds. When you average them out, that's too low for a family size and it's too high for a single. So every project is going to have its own unique pro forma, but I think if all of these pieces align up and you can get as much as possible into an as of right approval context with limiting the site plan issues that did kind of stack up for you, I will admit, which is a little scary. And I'd say on your list, not to nitpick, but I mean, there were some examples of where I know you had, didn't provide XYZ. They are provided in our plans just as prototypical. So there is a prototypical foundation. It just needs to be validated for a site. It's not that we're missing a foundation plan. So long way of saying, I think you're right, but if we're all working together, I think we can bring those down.
Hello. Oh, hi. Hi, my name's Lauren. I'm with Bryson and Wood Construction. And I just had a question about a roadblock that we run into. I don't know exactly who to ask this question specifically, but I'll just put it out there. It's regarding septic systems. So we often have a lead with a potential, client, and it's at the feasibility stage and it gets stopped there because they want to put an SRU on their property for XYZ reason, and they can't because they just don't. Their septic is 15, 20 years old, or 10 years old, and they didn't have the forethought to make it bigger than it needs to be to accept an SRU. Is there anything coming down the pipeline that you can tell us, or any other new developments that might help small builders overcome this?
Thank you for the question. I can acknowledge that the septic factor is an additional burden to rural residents that is just not realized for folks in an urban context. And I think a lot of the examples, well, they could be retooled or used in rural contexts with the pre-designs that we've seen today. It does get challenging. You talk about like, what's your total daily flow, liters per day? The Part 8 design, you need a qualified professional to design that system. You've got these aging systems in place in rural areas. What are the minimum separations from wells to septic systems? I mean, let's just assume that you want to do something like that. You've got an aged system and you're probably going to need a full replacement. You're looking at a minimum of $30,000 for that. So I don't have any good news, but I acknowledge that that is a thing that we are encountering many times when we speak with rural residents. They're very interested in doing this. They've got the land to do it, but plus $30,000 is just a challenge. So again, I don't have a solution. We're always thinking about these things, but we acknowledge and we know about the issue.
Yeah, so we've done a few error units, and septic is usually like a big hanging point on them. One thing that actually comes up more often on, this is for the municipal people in the room, is you can only have one septic system on one property or one well on one property. And a lot of the smaller townships, they say, so in Ottawa, you can have either or, so you can have like 2 septics, 1 well, or 2 wells, 1 septic. But everywhere, like, so Ottawa is kind of fixing it a little bit, but in a lot of the other municipalities, it's you can only have 1 well, 1 septic, and so then you're looking at a minor variance. We are starting to see those minor variances actually get approved as far as like putting 2 septics on 1 property. And the reason for that is they just like they don't want the person to have the opportunity to sever the property in the future if there's 2 septics, 2 wells. But you know, like that can be handled in a different way, I think, as far as municipal planning goes. A couple other solutions is we've explored one where we take the old septic tank and turn it into a gray water system and put in a new tank on the existing bed, which is a little bit saving. Like, usually the beds are okay, it's just the tank has to be upsized. You can also use the old tank as like a pumping station holding tank into a new two chamber tank. So there are a couple other things you can do, but a lot of it does come down to municipal approvals and multiple septics.
I just want to say that in North Grenville, we don't limit that. So if you're code compliant, you can have, yes, whatever you need.
Thanks. So Brent Burrow, Mayor of Elizabethtown, Kittley. I learned some new things today. So every day is a great opportunity to learn something new. This certainly is no exception to that. So what occurs to me is all of the various studies that are required, and my colleague leaned over and asked me about the sunshade study and things like that. So that one was a new one to me in this context. But what strikes me today is something that I have lamented about in other aspects of my life. When I think about how I grew up as a teenager, yeah, it was a different time, but I should be dead 20 times over from the things that I'm protected from now. I should have been dead. And it's the same type of thing with the housing here. When I take a look at the list of studies and we wonder why things are not affordable, we've done it to ourselves. So I take a look at the housing developments of the wartime housing, and I said to be corrected, but I don't think that they did the 20 studies that we now require for a similar type of development. So where do we begin to solve that problem? Like, have we? And this is not to be offensive to any of the engineers. I don't mean it, by this phraseology, but have we over-engineered ourselves? What are we afraid of? What are we protecting society and ourselves from that's adding 2/3 of the cost? The solution seems to be simple in front of us, but how do we get there? How do we chip away at that stuff and start peeling it back so that it's not as complicated and not as expensive? I don't know if any of you have a particular answer, but I think that's the conversation that we need to start having. Otherwise, we're never going to get it back to being affordable. We've just stacked too many layers on things, and I think we've gone overboard. So we need to start, how do we turn the pendulum around and start swinging it back towards the middle?
I guess from a municipal perspective, maybe this isn't an answer, but like we applaud the moves from the province where if it's less than 10 residential units, you don't have to go through that site plan process. That knocks out a few of those studies. And then, as Andrew had presented that as his case study, we're like, hey, you actually don't need this. And so, in looking through the study list in my mind mentally as a municipal staff person, I'm checking it off and I'm like, this wouldn't be needed in this context. So there's a pre-con. So I'd say that's maybe like from all the belts and suspenders perspective, that's probably like worst case scenario. And it's not like that in reality. When you come in and you speak with us, we are interested in what can we do to help this project get going at minimal intervention? You know, we're dealing with all these fantastic innovators and folks in these spaces who are doing really great things. And like the way that they're thinking about just even the waste on a construction site and the way they're putting all their time and resources into that. On the municipal side, like, and then you come to us and we're like, oh, you didn't do a sunshade study. You know, that's not how we want to be. We want to be working as hard as all of the industry partners in trying to find efficiencies within our government system because it's a crisis. I mean, all hands on deck. What can we do and how can we minimize those things?
I will just mention real quick, sorry, Dan. Yeah, so like I did present like a worst case scenario. I didn't do my pre-consult with Phil. So a lot of those studies will get removed. And also like, you know, as a team that we service kind of all of Eastern Ontario, like when we go into a project at the feasibility phase, we're looking at like, what's the worst case scenario? Like what is everything that can come up? Especially if you're like, the reason why we don't do downtown Ottawa projects is because like you have your heritage study, your sunshade study, servicing, and then you have to check the water meter. Like there's just so much stuff that it's just not worth for us to go in there. But yeah, so like a lot of the more like rural projects, they are definitely simplified. And just anecdotally, every time I see Mr. Clark, it's too bad he left. Every time I see him, I'm like, hey, like on this project, I had to do this ridiculous thing because I got asked. And so I'm constantly talking to him about like, how can we make this more efficient, but still provide the same level of service?
It's a really philosophical question, which I'm absolutely not going to try to answer as a federal employee. But I will say that I think it all starts with zoning. So as scary as that list is, if your zoning isn't flexible, you're not even having a conversation about the studies. So start there, try to get as much of a permissive box as possible. And I'll just share a couple of best practices that I've seen from communities trying to enable the catalog, in addition to the local partnership pre-review that encourage others to join. So one is certified plans programs. I was speaking with the CBO and at the break about this. We see this for greenfield development where there's repeat suburban homes. CBO is providing a pathway where those builders can come in and certify their model. And then when it's time to come in for a specific application, you pay a reduced fee. And basically the CBO review is down to the site issues. So I would love to see that as an open window for infill typologies, for the gentle density typologies we have in the catalog. Not just the catalog, but it could be a cabin design. It could be from anybody here, could be from CADCO, right? Make it easier for that repeat build, show that municipalities are in the business of supporting standardization. So that's my pitch to CBOs, is one. The second is on site guidance. So parking is really hard. It's the reason I shared, I mean, some of your community lots are going to be more flexible for parking, but even the example you gave here in town, it is hard to accommodate. You had 8 stalls, so that's over a 1-to-1 ratio on a tight site. So you know your community's best as municipal leaders and as staff. Provide that extra guidance. If you're working with a standardized product, here are parking solutions that'll work in our community, then you make that study step so much easier because it's just, here's an off-the-shelf solution that'll work. You have to figure that out from scratch. So food for thought.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting this. Are any of the developments using the new terrace system, and what would the cost be?
The new tour, like the modular septic systems. Yeah. Yeah. So actually, we started exploring that on a few projects, especially in the rural areas. Because if you can get rid of septic tanks and septic systems, then you can do like half-acre lots and get more properties in there. I think it's with the federal government right now. There was like something in the Senate. They're reviewing how we can use those modular, I forget the acronym they have for it, but the modular sewer systems. Do you know, Dan? No? I just read about it like a month ago. So it's coming through the legislation. They're really big in the US right now. They're not like approved for Canadian use, I guess I could say.
Yeah, and on our side of things, you said like belt and suspenders. Like our way of thinking belt and suspenders is, if the buildings are better, it's easier for in a lot of different kind of structural ways and human benefit ways. It's easier for a CBO to say, okay, the building's good, and then our like suspenders, yeah, you don't strike out over 10 units. You think about the 10,000 liters limits. And you look at, okay, how can we do a sort of a faster path to the water, waste and water infrastructure? Like even a new terrace system, we looked at it. We've looked at it for a few projects. I actually think it's exceptional, but you're looking at sometimes multi-years if you're going through some of these studies, because it's like a community system. So you have this hybrid approach of like under 10,000 liter cluster type approach. So yeah, case dependent, but yeah, belt and suspenders, work with what the municipality's got, try and fit within it. And then if you build better, then hopefully it goes through quickly. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Great presentation. My name is James. I'm a local real estate investor here in Kempville. So I have a two-part question. My first question, I think Daniel might be suited for this one, is in terms of from a financing perspective, some of the designs that you've been showing from CMHC's catalog, would they be preferred, in part of some of the CMHC financing or MLI Select or any incentives that might have? And my second question, I guess, would be from a municipality perspective, is would you guys essentially offer some sort of, developmental charge reduction in fees based on some of the products that CMHC has, or maybe fast track some of the approvals that you would have for any kind of projects that we're showing in the catalog? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I could just speak really quickly to current products that are on the market. So in the homeowner space, there's a refinance product now. You can tap into your existing equity as a property owner to add an ARU. That's a really great ARU pathway that didn't exist until last year. And then on the commercial side, I mentioned if you're 5+ units for MLI Select, the catalog definitely gives you pathways for the energy performance points within that. Every project's unique, but there's alignment there for sure if you leverage the energy performance.
Of course, I want to plug the $25,000 for ARU projects within the municipality of North Grenville. And you're welcome to come and speak to me anytime about that. Thank you. Okay, sorry.
Did you want to thank them?
Oh yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for answering questions. We have a little gift that is a combination of United Counties and Municipality of North Grenville branded goods. And I'm going to invite Chris Morrison up to close the day. Thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. So as the last speaker of the day, I understand I have no time limit. So it was a dark and stormy November 1st, 1968 when I was born. No, seriously, I would just like to say to the presenters, thank you for coming today to present the information. It was very interesting. I'd like to also thank all of you for attending. We know that our time is all limited, so we appreciate you coming today. We're hoping that today would have sparked some interesting conversations around collaboration for new housing. I know myself, as the manager of social housing for the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, I had a good conversation with CMHC and one with St. Lawrence College that we're hoping to do some kind of collaboration partnership for our social housing units. Events like today just don't happen. So I would like to recognize both Caroline and Jackie for organizing, as well as the shoulders they stood on to get this whole thing put together, which would be Tammy, Jessica, and Kai. So, in closing, I would just say, pay attention to the UCLG website for future events around affordable housing and possibly a much larger housing summit coming perhaps in 2027. Okay, so thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. What? Oh, St. Lawrence College will be here till 3 p.m. if you didn't get a chance. And could the speakers come up for a group photo, which is a last minute, wasn't in my notes, Kai. You gotta